Chapter 1028. Watch out, Yi Fan! Chu Tian shouted from afar, and a sword chi shot toward Yi Fan. Yi Fan reacted quickly and dodged the attack by teleporting away. However, the sickle still made a wound on Yi Fan's neck that was more than 10 centimeters long, and Yi Fan's blood gushed out. The situation of the battle took a turn for the worse. Whether it was the four groups that were fighting against the four masters, or the battle at the back, the three academies were all at a disadvantage. Hundreds of people were seriously injured. If the army of the dead didn't kill them, some of them would have been killed. It's over. We have no chance of winning. He Xing looked at the battlefield, and his eyes were full of loneliness. Was the thousand-year foundation of the Celestial Fortress and the World Edge Pavilion going to be ruined in his hands? Don't get caught up in the fight. Run! He Xing roared. At this moment, Kumu walked over slowly. Do you think it's possible to run? The fat spirit envoy followed him. Seeing you guys play for so long, my hands are itchy, so I came to play with you guys. After the underworld was unified by the King of Hell, the Demon Lord, the days were really boring. The ghost-masked woman walked toward the battlefield with enchanting steps. Forget it, I'll play too. After that, the three of them sped up and turned into 3 clouds of black fog, rushing toward the battlefield from hundreds of meters away. In a sea of clouds, Yi Tian, Yao He, and He Xing saw this scene and couldn't help but feel nervous. The 3 spirit envoys attacked. Originally, they had no chance of winning. Now that the 3 spirit envoys joined the battle, they were afraid that they wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Although they didn't give up resisting, they all had the same thought, that the battle was going to end soon. 100 miles Dark Crow. As soon as Kumu finished his words, a large amount of black fog rushed into the crowd of the 3 academies, and the black fog turned into crows. A disciple hit the crows with an iron hammer, but the crows quickly disintegrated into fog, and then quickly condensed in front of him, and pecked at the disciple's wrist. The disciple's defense was broken, and a big hole was pierced through his wrist. The seemingly harmless crows actually had such a terrifying attack power. And there were so many of them that it was difficult to defend against them. Shrink your defense. A sea of clouds roared. Everyone hurriedly retreated. However, at this moment, another black shadow descended from the sky and directly bombarded the ground. The huge earthquake directly scattered the defensive formation of the 3 academies. Might King shakes the earth. Boom! The 1,000-pound hammer in the fat spirit envoy's hand smashed onto the ground, causing the ground to tumble like waves. Damn, what kind of power is this? This guy is even stronger than the dead tree. Crane looked at the incoming waves. If they were hit by this wave, their defensive formation would be completely destroyed. However, they would not be able to defend against the army of the dead. Shield of Light. Crane forcefully activated a light-type defensive skill. However, this time, the opponent's skill hit the Shield of Light head-on. After a violent collision of spiritual energy, Crane Xing was sent flying and spat out several mouthfuls of blood. A disciple hurriedly used the crane to travel, but a black shadow suddenly appeared behind them. It was the ghost-masked woman. Dismember. The woman smiled. Several thin threads of dark light flashed, and together with the disciple of the Celestial Pavilion who caught Crane Xing, both of their arms and legs were cut off. In just a moment, the 3 spirit envoys not only almost destroyed the defensive line of the 3 academies, but also severely injured the strongest among them, Crane Xing. For a moment, many people's minds were blank. This is the strength of a 2-star Ghost King. It's too fast, we can't even catch their movements. Their underworld power can directly break the defense of our war souls and cause damage to our bodies. And we can't break their defense directly. This is the underworld, we have no chance of winning. Not far away, the 100 ghosts and rainbow demons had already defeated 2 groups of people from the Celestial Fortress. Yazi had severely injured the black-armored king and the Grey Crow. Only Bai Yi was still struggling. It was only a matter of time before she was defeated. Now, the only ones who still had some resistance were Yi Fan and the other two. However, the wound on Yi Fan's neck kept bleeding. It was unknown what poison Ding Quang had smeared on his side, but the wound couldn't heal. His physical strength and life were quickly decreasing. In order to protect Yi Fan, Chu Tian and Xiao Zhan were fighting head-on with Ding Quang. At this time, they were also severely injured. Ding Quang swept out with a blow. Instead of retreating, Xiao Zhan rushed forward and attacked Ding Quang crazily. Chu Tian, take Yi Fan and run. Avenge us in the future. Xiao Zhan. I won't go. Get out of my way. Chu Tian, what do you want to do? Do you want to defeat all the army of the dead by yourself? You've already lost, don't force yourself. Xiao Zhan's body was covered in flames. Ding Quang was also afraid of this, so he used this advantage to attack wildly. Run! Chu Tian gritted his teeth. Xiao Zhan was right. He did have a trump card, but so what? Could he kill all the army of the dead here? If the others could hold on, there might be hope. But now that they were all defeated, once they used up their last bit of spiritual energy, there would be no more hope. Xiao Zhan. Senior brother, run. While Xiao Zhan was distracted, the death god's scythe suddenly produced illusions that attacked Xiao Zhan from dozens of directions. Xiao Zhan quickly dodged, but just as he landed, the death god's scythe's blade directly pierced through his chest. Xiao Zhan looked at the blade in his chest in disbelief. Junior brother. Chu Tian and Yi Fan's eyes were red as they screamed at the top of their lungs. Xiao Zhan couldn't hear them clearly. He vaguely heard Ding Quang's laughter. Ha ha ha, here, we can make mistakes, but once you make a mistake, only death awaits you. This is a high-quality young bag. Run, run. Xiao Zhan slowly fell down. He reached out his hand to urge Chu Tian and Yi Fan, but he saw the two of them explode with a shocking amount of spiritual energy. Senior brother and junior brother had gone berserk. Those two fools knew that even if they used their trump cards, they wouldn't be able to turn the situation around, but they still didn't listen to me. Do they really want to die here? They're really stupid. As he fell down, Xiao Zhan saw the dark red sky above him. This was the netherworld. Here, their strength was greatly reduced. The power of his flames was also greatly reduced. Moreover, he couldn't recover his spiritual energy, and the other party could easily break through his defenses. In the end, he was still going to lose. I, Xiao Zhan, have been so powerful for so many years, but I've finally reached the end. Ding Quang probably didn't kill me, but I can't move at all. I'm just waiting to be captured. To Xiao Zhan, this was even more humiliating than being killed directly. Damn it, I can't even self-detonate my spiritual energy. In the netherworld, our spiritual energy is too limited. Just as he was about to close his eyes, he suddenly noticed that the color of the sky seemed to be changing slightly. The dark red sky became redder and redder. As if the sky was being ignited by flames. He narrowed his eyes slightly and saw a black dot rushing toward him at an incredible speed. After a while, he seemed to see more clearly. He was dressed in a long black robe with golden dragon patterns. His long robe fluttered in the wind. His white hair danced wildly behind him, and green smoke billowed out from both sides of his eyes. Dean. Xiao Zhan couldn't believe his eyes. Chapter 1029. Tian of a sea of clouds fought fiercely against Dead Tree, but the disparity in strength between the two sides was too great. Dead Tree was seriously injured and forced to retreat. Dead Tree was not in a hurry. He walked towards a sea of clouds and Tian, your demonic academy is really interesting, but to be honest, your students are more courageous than your useless director. At least they dare to fight. Your director directly jumped off the cliff. He even needs a woman to protect him. What a joke. Tian helped a sea of clouds up and glared at Dead Tree. Seeing that the two were still unwilling to show weakness, Dead Tree smiled and shook his head. Your spirit is really impressive, but I'm very curious. What are you still holding on for? You said Celestial Fortress, they were still counting on others to support them. But your demonic academy, what else do you have? It's impossible for a person who can't see hope to have such a high fighting spirit. A sea of clouds said coldly, as long as there is one person in our demonic academy, there is hope. You mean the rest of your people? Dead Tree faintly smiled, don't lie to yourself. The ones who came this time are the elites of your academy. You've seen the gap between us. Even you guys are so defeated. As for the rest of you, we can easily eliminate them. Even if you have thousands of soldiers and horses, you will die here. You have no chance at all. Dead Tree approached step by step. These two old guys don't have enough yang energy. It just so happens that my hands are itchy. It shouldn't be a problem to start a massacre. At this moment, in a sea of clouds, Tian suddenly saw a black dot in the sky. When they saw the black dot, the two were stunned for a moment at the same time. Then they looked at each other and suddenly laughed at the same time. Sure enough. Tian said. Really, to be honest, I don't think that guy will die. Even if no one has survived since ancient times, but, I just don't think he will die. A sea of clouds laughed, but tears fell from the corners of her eyes. Brat, you really worried us to death. That's right. I even secretly shed tears for him these past few nights. Now that I think about it, I've been deceived by that guy again. Do you think we have any hope now that he's here? Asked a sea of clouds. I don't think so, but who knows? Anyway, you know that you can't use common sense to judge that guy's strength, Tian said. But with the current situation, I really can't think of any solution. A sea of clouds shook his head. Tian said with a smile, in fact, the current demonic academy is not the real demonic academy. Only when he stands here, the demonic academy is the real demonic academy. In this regard, a sea of clouds was meaningless. Ku Mu, on the other hand, was dumbfounded. Why did these two old fellows suddenly change? The two of them were speaking in a language that he couldn't understand at all. Looking at their expressions, it was as if they were two completely different people. What nonsense are you talking about? Ku Mu felt like he was being treated as a fool and was extremely angry. A sea of clouds smiled slightly and said to Ku Mu, you just asked that the demonic academy's disciples should have no hope in their hearts. I'm sorry, you're wrong. We always have a glimmer of hope in our hearts. Ku Mu said angrily, you're all about to die, how can there be any hope? Even if thousands of troops come, they won't be able to save you. Tian snorted coldly, you're wrong. Others hope for thousands of troops, but we only hope for one person. A person that you said is a coward. As soon as Tian finished speaking, the temperature of the entire Revenant Plain suddenly rose. Then, a black shadow with flames all over its body fell from the sky and smashed onto the ground. With a loud bang, the whole earth seemed to shake violently. The heat wave instantly swept across the whole place, shaking everyone back. When everyone turned to look at the center of the field, they saw a white-haired man, holding a silver spear, half-squatting on the ground. His long hair fluttered in the wind. In this dark space, this touch of white was particularly eye-catching. There was a faint red liquid flowing inside the spear in his hand. It wasn't the red of blood, but the red of lava. Many female disciples of Fenglai saw this person and couldn't help but feel their brains short-circuit. Oh my God, this is so handsome. He's much more handsome in real life than in the Shadow Stone. It's the nameless director of the demonic academy. Isn't he dead? The people of Celestial Fortress also looked at Lu Chen. In the Shadow Stone, they clearly saw Ironwood and the others, but they were actually willing to stay behind to protect this person. This originally didn't make sense. What was so good about this person that Ironwood and the other high-level Theo the Great were willing to stay behind to protect him? However, there seemed to be some clues now. Didn't he fall into the abyss of calamity? Even the army of the dead doesn't dare to go into the abyss of calamity. How could he come out alive? What level is he? Why is his spiritual power so strong? The most excited people were none other than the disciples of the demonic academy. Director. Hundreds of divine demon disciples looked at the white-haired man in shock. The director isn't dead. He's back. Lu Chen slowly stood up and adjusted the badge on his chest. 7-star Field Great Cultivator. How did the nameless level up? A sea of clouds was astonished. This guy had been in the demonic academy for so long, as if he was a 1-star Great Cultivator, but he had leveled up in just 10 days. Oh my god, the director leveled up. He went from a 1-star Great Cultivator to a 7-star Great Cultivator. No way, this is too terrifying. The people of Celestial Fortress were at a loss. Was it so difficult to level up from a 1-star Great Cultivator to a 7-star Great Cultivator? Was it worth being so shocked? Hey, brother, is your director really only a 7-star Great Cultivator? One of them asked the divine demon disciple next to him with a puzzled look. This person happened to be Xiao Zhan's good friend, Old Wine. He was shocked. You don't know our director. Do you know how strong he is as a 7-star Great Cultivator? The Celestial Fortress disciple wanted to say, sorry, I really don't know how strong a 7-star Great Cultivator is. Speaking of Great Cultivators, it was a long time ago. It was already a miracle to see a Great Cultivator in the 6th Celestial Layer. He's actually a 1-star Great Cultivator. Old Wine reminded. 1-star Great Cultivator. That person was even more confused. Well, it seemed that he was indeed not on the same channel as the people of the Demonic Academy. He didn't know the difference between a nameless 7-star Great Cultivator and other 7-star Great Cultivators. At this time, Lu Chen's gaze swept across the whole place. He paused for a moment on Ironwood, Xiao Zhan, Mysterious Armor King, and the others. He suddenly raised his hand, and the triple door was all ears. He pulled Xiao Zhan to his side. Little Green. Lu Chen called out Little Green, and Little Green hurriedly checked Xiao Zhan's injuries. Director, I'm sorry. Xiao Zhan said weakly. Lu Chen smiled at him. Have a good rest. Leave the rest to me. After saying that, he sent Xiao Zhan to the Demonic Academy. Finally, Lu Chen's gaze fell on Ironwood. At this time, Ironwood had already turned into a mummy. His face was full of fear, and there were 10 eye-catching holes on both sides of his head. Lu Chen slowly walked towards Ironwood. Arrogant, this is not a place where you can come close. Suddenly, a person came out from the side and rushed towards Lu Chen with a trident. Lu Chen slightly narrowed his eyes. He twisted his fingers, and the silver gallbladder suddenly turned into a hot red spear. Hot lava kept dripping from the spear. With a back attack, he flashed behind that person, and the spear ignored his defense and pierced his chest. That person's face was full of shock. This is Underworld Earth Fire. As he spoke, his entire body turned into black charcoal. Seeing this scene, the army of the dead couldn't be more shocked. The abyss of myriad calamities was enough to make all the races of the underworld fear. Falling into the abyss meant eternal damnation. Even one's soul consciousness would be burned to ashes. And that man had crawled out of the abyss of myriad calamities, and he also had underworld earth fire, which was enough to make the underworld fear. Lu Qin came in front of Ironwood. Looking at the tragic death of Ironwood, green smoke billowed out of his eyes. He lowered his head slightly and said in a trembling voice, "Big brother Ironwood, I'm sorry." Gradually, billowing flames appeared around him. The temperature of the entire plains of the dead suddenly rose. Some people's feet were already burning. Lu Qin turned and walked towards the tens of thousands of army of the dead in front of him. The Yin and Yang realms have always minded their own business, but since you've crossed the line, don't blame me, the solipsistic, for being rude. Chapter 1030. Tens of thousands of army of the dead, 4 experts, and 3 spirit envoys. Lu Chen's eyes were filled with killing intent. Since you've crossed the line, I can only flatten the underworld. Xiao Zhan's wound, which had just been stopped, started bleeding again. As expected of the Dean, the smell was familiar. He Xing's eyes widened. This guy. This is the underworld. He's just a great cultivator. Is he crazy? Suddenly, Lu Qin looked at He Xing, which startled him. That guy's eyes were too scary. They were burning with green flames as if they wanted to eat someone. Who killed Brother Ironwood? He Xing finally reacted and said, "It's him, Ding Quang." Lu Qin turned his head and looked at Ding Quang. He Xing was relieved. But after thinking about it, he suddenly realized something. That guy just glanced at him and he felt an incomparable pressure. Even his back was wet. He didn't feel this way even when he was fighting with the 3 spirit envoys. This guy was just a 7-star great cultivator. How could he have such a terrifying pressure? Lu Qin turned his head and looked at Ding Quang. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Not only did this guy seriously injure Xiao Zhan, but he was also Ironwood's murderer. You will be buried with Brother Ironwood. Ding Quang narrowed his eyes and snorted. Solipsistic. Your name also has the word Quang in it. Well, let me tell you, no one dares to be arrogant in front of me. In the next second, Lu Chen and Ding Quang moved at the same time. The long spear in his hand spun and lava flew out of the spear. Now the silver gallbladder had turned into the hellfire silver gallbladder. Ding Quang's figure suddenly disappeared. Ding Quang was not inferior. He used the death space and disappeared. After a moment, when the two met, they appeared at the same time. Way of the spear, star shattering. The flame spear was as fast as thunder and pointed at Ding Quang's forehead. Ding Quang snorted and disappeared instantly. At the same time, he waved his scythe. Lu Qin quickly dodged, not good. Ding Quang's previous moves were all feints. His killing move is coming. Sure enough, although Lu Qin dodged Ding Quang's sickle, the blade suddenly disappeared and then mysteriously reappeared behind Lu Qin. Reaper's Harvest. The tip of the saber suddenly enlarged and formed a saber energy. From a very close distance, it pierced towards Lu Qin's back. Lu Qin made his move at almost the same time. Triple Gate. Way of the Spear, shattering stars. Although the Grim Reaper's scythe was fast, it was still a horizontal sweep. However, the Netherworld Fire Silver Gallbladder was a straight thrust, so its speed was even faster. With a puff, the scalding hot spear pierced straight into Ding Quang's mouth. In an instant, the Death God's scythe became weak and powerless. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lu Qin dodged the attack and arrived in front of Ding Quang in the blink of an eye. Ding Quang's entire chin had melted, leaving only broken bones. Every drop of lava dripping from the silver gallbladder could melt his body. Now, he was the only one who stared at Lu Qin with a pair of extremely frightened eyes. In less than a moment, Ding Quang's body was completely melted and evaporated by the lava, turning into ashes. Lu Qin gently closed his eyes, his lips trembling. This time, he didn't make the same mistake. Ding Quang didn't even have the chance to turn into a ghost. He couldn't be more dead. Brother Ironwood, I've avenged you. Lu Chen pulled out the Hellfire silver gallbladder and turned to look at all the enemies. At this moment, whether it was the army of the dead or the disciples of the three academies, they were all shocked speechless. That Ding Quang was, killed in seconds just like that. The combination of the Triple Gate and Shatter Star is a technique that simulates a spatial skill. How can it be faster than a real spatial skill? It's formless. He Xing's eyes widened. No, it's not just formless. It's also the weapon's attacking method, reaction time, prediction ability, attack speed, and so on. The disciple who had turned into a human stick with him hurriedly asked, Pavilion Master, what's going on? Although Ding Quang made the first move, Lone Tyrant's reaction was simply too fast. He immediately locked onto Ding Quang's position. Perhaps he also predicted Ding Quang's movements, but in any case, he managed to locate Ding Quang in the shortest amount of time possible. He did his best to shorten the time gap between them. Solipsistic's formless is extremely skilled. The combination of the two skills is flawless. Although it's a fake spatial skill, it's comparable to a real spatial skill. On this basis, what determines the outcome of the battle is the details. The Death Scythe uses a horizontal slash and an arc trajectory, but Solipsistic Spear uses a straight thrust, so it's faster. That's one of the reasons. Secondly, Ding Quang didn't use his full strength because he didn't use his full strength. However, Solipsistic might be too confident in himself. He used his full strength and didn't leave any way out. Thirdly, and most importantly, it seems that Ding Quang's actions are all within Solipsistic's calculations. In this way, Ding Quang can't dodge the Shatterer, but Solipsistic can dodge the Death Scythe. The disciple next to him was stunned. Although the battle between the two only lasted for a moment, the battle of wits and courage was far beyond his imagination. Is this a battle between top masters? Crane narrowed his eyes. If Lone Tyrant isn't a genius with extraordinary talent, then he must have experienced countless life and death battles to be able to execute his combat techniques to such perfection. But Pavilion Master, he actually broke through his opponent's soul-body fusion defense. His flame seems to be different from ordinary people's. It directly burned the soul consciousness of the dead soul. Yes, I noticed that too. Considering that he once fell into the abyss of calamity, I think he must have returned to the battlefield from the hell of hell with the fury of that place. He Xing said angrily, Ironwood and the others didn't make a wrong judgment. They put their hopes on this boy. He's our only hope. Little Ming, keep our hands and feet well. If we can escape this time, we can still reattach them. Yes, Pavilion Master, on the side of the army of the dead, the three spirit envoys finally began to take this white-haired man seriously. Dead Tree narrowed his eyes. You killed Ding Quang with one move. Solipsistic, you've really impressed me. Fat Spirit Envoy walked over. It seems that the abyss of calamity didn't kill you. It seems that you've gained some amazing ability. The underworld fire. That thing didn't kill you. I'm really curious as to how you managed to survive. Yiksha licked the curved dagger in her hand and walked to her companion. Interesting. Finally, there's a prey that can make me excited. Solipsistic, you've successfully aroused my interest. Lu Chen looked indifferently at the three spirit envoys. Then, he looked past them and looked at the remaining three masters of the army of the dead. Let me ask you, where is Li Wei? Chapter 1031. Li Wei. Oh, you mean that woman from the Heavenly Fox clan? Yiksha sneered. Lu Chen frowned slightly. Li Wei told him that she was from the Fox clan. When did she become a Heavenly Fox clan? There were thousands of clans in the Jiutian, so they were often not the same clan. For example, the Human clan and the Dragon clan, one was a weak clan, while the other was an upper-middle clan. The Demon clan and the Heavenly Demon clan, one was a super-strong clan, while the other was an upper-middle clan. But no matter whether Li Wei was from the Fox clan or the Heavenly Fox clan, Lu Chen had to find her. If she was alive, he wanted to see her. Where is she? You want to know? Then we'll talk about it after you beat us. I don't believe that you, a 7-star great cultivator, can fight with a 2-star ghost king. The Yiksha opened its horrifying mouth and stuck out its long tongue to lick the dagger. After I capture you, I'll definitely ask the Soul King to bestow you to me. Your young energy, I suddenly want to find another way to suck it dry. Lu Chen said lightly, I don't want to waste time. All of you, come at me together. Xiao Zhan's wound had just opened, but it opened again. Lu Yi looked at Xiao Zhan angrily. Hey, can you stop moving? Miss Lu, I don't want to move either, but did you hear what the dean said? Xiao Zhan couldn't stay calm. I heard it. Is it strange? That's because you haven't seen the dean fight. He used to be like this. Lu Yi said matter-of-factly. You will get used to it. Okay, stop moving. I don't have any extra medicine for you. There are many wounded over there. Ku Mu narrowed his eyes. Together? You are really arrogant. How can you? Before he finished his words, Lu Chen had already moved. Since they were unwilling to fight together, he had to do it himself. Wings of the Blood Demon. Lu Chen's figure rushed to the sky. He floated in the air and looked down at the tens of thousands of army of the dead. The bright fire silver bladder hung beside him. His hands turned into claws and lifted up, that's. Oh no, he's an elementalist. At this moment, the 3 spirit envoys finally realized that something was wrong. Combined with the fact that Lu Chen's fire element possessed the fire attribute of the underworld, which could restrain the souls of the dead, the 3 of them knew that they must not let this guy use the energy-storing spell. 3 great spirit envoys, 3 great experts, madly rushed towards Lu Chen at the same time. Among these 6 people, 3 were 2-star ghost kings, while the other 3 were 9-star great spectral cultivator. Their explosive speed was unimaginably fast, and they instantly appeared beside Lu Chen. 6 people attacked at the same time. 9-headed ghost chariot. The dead tree suddenly transformed into a 9-headed bird spirit and attacked. Heaven-breaking hammer. 81 flash. Yazi, 100 ghosts, and rainbow demon followed closely behind and attacked at the same time. 6 super powerhouses simultaneously besieged Lu Chen, who was in the midst of accumulating power. At this time, Lu Chen suddenly shouted, soul and body as one. Void Guard. His right arm instantly demonized, and at the same time, a black gas shield completely enveloped Lu Chen. At this time, Lu Chen's Void Guard's defensive power had reached a terrifying 120 billion. As long as the attack did not exceed this level, it would not be able to break through the Void Guard. 6 great killing moves, actually could not break through the Void Guard. Impossible, what kind of shield is this? Our accumulated damage is already incalculable, why can't we break through the shield? His spirit core is not right. Why is his shield able to block our attacks in the underworld? Spirit core. Lu Chen had a chaos spirit core, which could not be suppressed by any type, even in the underworld. In the underworld, the souls of the dead had an advantage over other cultivators, but in front of Lu Chen, they did not have the slightest advantage. No, this shield is not the same as ordinary shields, it must be a single high attack skill. These people were worthy of being called experts, they quickly discovered the difference in the Void Guard and adjusted their tactics. Lu Chen snorted, you know it too late. Go to hell. Raging flames burning the sky, star burning. Lu Chen directly used the second level of raging flames burning the sky, star burning. Suddenly, the ground of the dead soul plane collapsed, the earth shook, and the ground caved in. Then, the underground lava spewed out from the cracks everywhere. At first glance, except for the location of the 3 academies and the 11 iron pillars, the whole area was set up with shocking lava pillars. As far as the eye could see, the rolling lava was evenly distributed, connecting the sky and the earth. Seeing this scene, Kumu and the others were shocked to the point of being dumbstruck. This guy, the whole area was blown up in an instant. The lava soared to the sky, at least 100 meters high, and flooded the whole area. Under such a dense attack, the tens of thousands of army of the dead were instantly drowned by the geocentric lava. The screams below were endless. Even the souls of the dead were afraid of the geocentric lava. With a large number of hellhounds, the army of the dead had no time to escape. Even if a few experts could avoid the eruption of lava, where was there a place to hide in the lava? Not long after, the tens of thousands of army of the dead had been turned into charcoal and were taken away by the lava. This is. Kumu trembled all over. He had seen group attack skills, but the scary thing was that this guy's group attack was too terrifying. Whether it was the explosive strength, speed, range, or the types of fire elements, it was unimaginably terrifying. There were only tens of thousands of army of the dead here. Even if there were hundreds of thousands, or millions, if no one could subdue this guy, he would directly destroy the whole army in one move. Impossible. Impossible. How much is your flame affinity, and how much is your battle soul's spiritual power? The fat spirit envoy looked at Lu Chen in disbelief. It had to be known that the more powerful the skill, the higher the requirements and the greater the consumption of spiritual energy. The earth fire could indeed restrain the souls of the dead, but no one could really control the earth fire. One of the reasons was the lack of flame affinity. Lu Chen snorted, "Now is not the time for me to answer your questions. I'll give you one last chance. Tell me, where is Li Wei, and I'll leave your corpses intact." The 6 of them didn't dare to be careless anymore. They retreated to a corner and stared at Lu Chen. Lu Chen raised the corner of his mouth slightly. Lu Chen's eyes were fierce, "Not going to talk. Don't worry, I have a way to make you talk." After saying that, Lu Chen took out the bright fire silver guts. Kumu's eyelids twitched, and he stared at Lu Chen. Such a strong elemental mage, and such a terrifying close combat ability. What kind of monster is this guy? On the side of the Third Academy, the surrounding area was surrounded by lava, forming an isolated island. Those who could still fight were resisting the lava. They weren't particularly afraid of the underworld's earth fire, but they still needed to be careful in such a high temperature. Chu Tian walked to Xiao Zhan and shook his head. "Hey, how much do you think the Dean's flame affinity is?" Xiao Zhan and Yi Fan were good at using fire, especially Xiao Zhan, whose main attack was flames. At least 2,000 and above. Xiao Zhan said, "As you can see, the temperature of the underworld's earth fire is very high. It can burn the soul. If you want to control this kind of fire, you'll be burnt to a crisp if you don't have 2,000 points. Then how much do you have?" Chu Tian asked. 1,700. It's actually that high. Chu Tian looked at Xiao Zhan in surprise. "Hey, senior brother, I specialize in the fire element, okay? You also know that increasing elemental affinity is very difficult. Not only do you need to be compatible with your spirit pill, you also need to cultivate. I cultivated for a long time in several strange fire sources before I reached this high elemental affinity. Before meeting the Dean, I've never seen anyone with a higher elemental affinity than me. Even Yi Fan isn't as high as me." Xiao Zhan was convinced. He was already like this, but his senior brother still came over to laugh at him. "If you have the ability, go and compete with the Dean. People say that we're geniuses, but the Dean isn't human. How much is your earth elemental affinity?" 1,800, Chu Tian said proudly. Chapter 1032. At this time, Kumu and the others already knew how powerful Lu Chen was, so they didn't dare to be careless and began to attack Lu Chen together. However, the emptiness of gods and demons' arm was not to be trifled with. His defense was impregnable, and several continuous attacks could not break through his defense. To break his defense, we must use a joint skill. Yiksha shouted. The fat spirit envoy smashed his hammer toward Lu Chen. Although it couldn't hurt Lu Chen's body, it still shook him back. Then the 6 people behind him gathered their power at the same time. Lone Tyrant, have a taste of this move. Joint skill, Yushin War Soul. Suddenly, the black gas on the 6 people all gathered on Yiksha. Lu Chen frowned slightly. Did they temporarily transfer the power of the War Soul to that woman? Yiksha was the most mysterious one among these people. He should be a shadow assassin. His explosive power was quite high, and combined with the spiritual power of everyone, it was enough to pose a threat to him. Go to hell, solipsistic. Instant shadow raid. The 6 people seemed to be familiar with each other, and it didn't take long for them to gather their power. The other 5 people kept a small amount of spiritual power, but Yiksha's strength increased greatly, and he disappeared in an instant. Lu Chen's mind raced. Did that guy use Assassin's astral form or a space-type skill? Why did he disappear without a trace? Divine Devil Astral Form. Lu Chen launched the astral form skill, but he didn't force Yiksha's body out. Heaven's Eye. Lu Chen quickly opened Heaven's Eye, trying to infer Yiksha's whereabouts from the changes in the surrounding spiritual power. However, Heaven's Eye didn't find any special spiritual power in the surroundings. Yiksha seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Impossible, all skills are related to spiritual power. Lu Chen's mind raced. It seemed that Yiksha wouldn't give him enough time to figure it out. Lu Chen temporarily exposed a flaw behind him. Sure enough, at the moment his flaw appeared, a black shadow appeared behind him. Joint skill, Death of the Dead. Lu Chen flashed a cold light behind him. Go to hell, solipsistic. To be able to lock his divine devil astral form, so far, only Changming could do this. Whether Yiksha used a high-level astral form or a space-type skill, at least Lu Chen couldn't find a way to deal with her. This attack was extremely fast and sudden. It appeared behind Lu Chen almost instantaneously. Even Lu Chen was unable to completely avoid this attack. The dagger directly broke through Lu Chen's void guard. In the nick of time, Lu Chen quickly swung his spear backwards. Spear weight, Sky Spear. Although Lu Chen was half a step slower and his void guard was broken, his subsequent counterattack also forced Yiksha to not dare to pursue. After the void guard was broken, the huge impact directly blasted Lu Chen from mid-air to the ground. Of course, at this time, except for a small area on the ground, the magma had spread. Lu Chen directly fell into the magma like a cannonball, splashing a large amount of magma. Success! Yiksha and the others found a way to break the void guard and immediately breathed a sigh of relief. This void guard is too strange. As long as a single attack can't break the shield, it will always exist. It's really abnormal. Dead Tree shook his head and said. They had never seen this kind of shield before. I don't know if he can survive in the magma. Dead Tree said, controlling the earth fire doesn't mean he can withstand it. Then let him die under his own skill. Only Yiksha frowned, he deliberately showed a flaw just now to lure me to attack. Otherwise, I could have taken his life just now. Perhaps only the person involved knew that solipsistic had reduced the damage to the minimum. The situation that could have been directly killed had now become confusing. From this point of view, the solipsistic still won the fight just now. What? He deliberately left a flaw. Fat Spirit Envoy frowned, this guy's combat experience is beyond our imagination. Even if he couldn't find a way to break our combined skill, he still thought of a way to minimize the damage at the first moment. This guy is a bit tricky. Dead Tree had to put away his joy after hearing this and looked at the magma underground again. Next time, we must not fall into his trap. Yiksha said fiercely. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone saw the magma below begin to bubble from the bottom. The whole magma pool, like boiling water, began to become restless. Not long after, a figure slowly rose from the magma. Compared to the hot magma, Lu Chen's eyes and smile were so cold. Next time. Sorry, there won't be a next time. After saying that, a long sword slowly appeared beside Lu Chen. Infinite Divine Demon Sword. 9 steps in the void. Lu Chen teleported from the ground to the sky. In the process of movement, Lu Chen shouted in a low voice, "Tiger descends the mountain." Sacred Lotus Sword Heart, 2160 Sword Chi, swift but not chaotic, attacked the 6 people in the sky at the same time. Seeing this scene, the people from Celestial Fortress and Fomlai Academy were completely confused. Wait, what is his class? Isn't he an elemental mage and close combat fighter? Those 2 classes were already so powerful when he used them. Why can he still use Sword Chi to attack? Triple cultivation. But aren't these 3 classes a little too strong? That Sword Chi is endless, the Spirit Envoys can only dodge. Elemental Mage has Sky Burning Flame, Fighter has Spear Dao, and Sword Controlling has Sacred Lotus Sword Heart. This guy is good at both short and long range, he's a triple cultivator. He Xing couldn't help but sigh, what an amazing person. Our Tianya Pavilion. No, our Celestial Fortress hasn't had such an all-round monster for many years. This guy. I'm afraid he's rarely matched in the level 6. Yi Fan and Chu Tian stood in front of Xiao Zhan. The 3 of them didn't dare to miss such a wonderful fight. The Dean can really crush the 3 of us. Xiao Zhan sighed, if he wasn't the Dean and a newcomer in the same batch, we wouldn't be able to raise our heads. Chu Tian nodded and said, we've always been called monsters by others, but now that we've seen the Dean, we know that this guy is the real monster. Yi Fan said calmly, if it weren't for such a Dean, how could the Demonic Academy accommodate so many geniuses? I think everyone wants to surpass that guy. Yi Fan's words really hit the spot in Chu Tian and Xiao Zhan's hearts. Even though they felt that their strength was not as good as Lu Chen's, they didn't admit defeat. Maybe this was the common characteristic of geniuses. At this moment, Yi Fan suddenly found that Lu Chen's figure slowed down. Oh no, the Dean's physical strength is depleted. Hearing about the physical strength depletion, everyone was suddenly awakened. That's right, the Dean's biggest problem is his weak body. Even though his level had increased and his physical attributes had increased dozens of times, Lu Chen had been rushing like crazy and continuously using powerful skills such as Star Burning, Spear Wei, Void Guarding, and Sacred Lotus Sword Heart. His physical strength was not enough for him to continue fighting for a long time. However, although Lu Chen's speed had slowed down, he still rushed toward the 6 of them. Especially when he focused his attacks on the Yiksha. She was the key now. Nameless, can he kill the Yiksha? Yi Tian stared nervously at the 7 figures in the air. Chapter 1033. Victory or defeat would be decided at this moment, but Yiksha's figure was ethereal, and Lu Chen's physical strength was obviously weakened. Your Sacred Lotus Sword Heart is powerful, but unfortunately, it's not that easy to hit us. Yiksha calmly dodged a few sword auras and sneered, solipsistic, it seems that you've reached the end of your life. Then I'll send you on your way. After saying that, Yiksha's figure disappeared again. But at this moment, Lu Chen's arms suddenly flashed with a golden light. Upon closer inspection, it was Lu Chen's mutated dragon species. Others didn't know what was going on, but the people of the Demonic Academy knew that the president had used all his strength for the last attack. Had he already launched the last attack? But there were still 6 opponents. Yiksha disappeared and hid somewhere, waiting for an opportunity to move. The other 5 people collectively defended heavily. Suddenly, Lu Chen directly withdrew his sword and stopped the sacred lotus sword heart. At the same time, he shot toward the 5 people. Die. Mutated Dragon Crystal. Void Attack, Void Shattering. After the Divine Demon Origin cultivation method was upgraded to the 6th level, both Void Attack and Void Defense were strengthened, and Void Attack became an area attack. This move, Void Shattering, could attack these 5 people at the same time. Ku Mu and the other 4 looked at Lu Chen in horror. This time, it was the terrifying Great Void Arm again. However, this time, the Great Void Arm was no longer defending. Instead, it exploded with shocking power and attacked the 5 of them. Seeing that Lu Chen had already punched, suddenly, a figure flashed by Lu Chen's side. However, before the person next to him could react, Lu Chen suddenly changed his move. He turned around in midair and shouted angrily, "I said there won't be a next time." Mutated Dragon Crystal. Sky-breaking sword. Yiksha never dreamed that Lu Chen could actually stop and change his move in the instant he attacked. It must be known that forcibly stopping a move would cause great damage to the body. Some people could even directly send themselves flying by forcefully stopping a move. The power of Void Attack, Void Shattering could be inferred from the aftermath of the eruption of spiritual power. It was definitely not an ordinary move or a move that could cause ordinary damage. If it wasn't for the fact that the safety of Kumu and the other 4 was really endangered, Yiksha wouldn't have shown up at all. For an expert like her, how could ordinary feints fool her? The only answer was that Solipsistic had really mobilized a huge amount of spiritual energy to deliver this fatal blow. Not to mention using a completely different sword move after forcefully withdrawing the move. In other words, he had changed the flow of spiritual power in his body in the nick of time. He had directly converted the spiritual power he had used to shatter the void to attack the 5 of them into the spiritual power he needed to use to crush the heavens. This move was as fast as lightning. With a flash of white light, Lu Chen was already 100 meters behind Yiksha. As for Yiksha, who had always been known for his speed, he didn't even have time to attack. In an instant, the 7 people in the air, and even the entire battlefield, fell silent. After a long time, Yiksha slowly turned around and looked at the man's back in shock, only to see him calmly complete the standard ending movement. You can actually use Wuxia to such a level of perfection. Lu Chen turned around and raised the long sword in his hand. The blade of the long sword was shockingly suffused with a faint red light. In the previous sword move, Lu Chen had added the fire element of the underworld. Previously, he had let a soul escape. He wouldn't make the same mistake twice. Seeing that sword, Yiksha had already lost all hope. At this moment, she also felt that her body was beginning to heat up. Solipsistic, you are very strong. But you still can't stop the iron hooves of the underworld army from trampling your world. Lu Chen looked at Yiksha indifferently. It seems that until now, you still don't understand why you will die. You attacked the world of the living. Actually, I don't care, just like I can't stop all wars. But your mistake is to offend me. As soon as his voice fell, Yiksha's face showed an extremely painful expression. Her rotten lower jaw was almost propped open by her own hands. Then, her body began to rapidly blacken from the inside out until she turned into black charcoal and fell from the sky. With a boom, the ground directly split open a kilometer-long crack. The endless stream of magma finally found an exit and flowed down along the crack. On the side of the celestial fortress, many people were so shocked that they were petrified. I don't understand. I only know that there must be something wrong with this guy's level. How can a 7-star Grand Cultivator have the power to split open a mountain? Could it be because of the word wild? He's the most exaggerated person I've ever seen in using the formless technique. Or rather, from the very beginning, he had thought that Yiksha would definitely come to his rescue, so he was prepared to change his move. In the magma, he had already come up with a set of countermeasures. First, he pretended to attack Kumu and the others, then he killed Yiksha who came to his rescue. However, even now, I still find it hard to believe that the void-shattering technique was a fake move. He Xing suddenly sighed, maybe it wasn't a fake move at all. What? Tower Master, you're saying that the void-shattering technique wasn't a fake move? He Xing nodded. Solipsistic made two preparations. If Yiksha didn't come to his rescue, he would kill Kumu and the others. If Yiksha came to his rescue, he would kill him instantly. Therefore, Solipsistic's void-shattering technique could fool Yiksha because it was real. However, it's really incredible to be able to control the spiritual energy in his body to such an extent. This is not something that only formless technique can do. If I'm not wrong, he should be able to control his spiritual energy in the minute, or even selfless state. Only by focusing all his attention on this attack, even forgetting himself, could he make such an incredible attack. After listening to the Tower Master's explanation, everyone finally understood why he sighed. Just the change just now was enough for them to try many times, and they might not even have the chance to understand it. At this time, although Lu Chen's face was pale and bloodless, Kumu and the others weren't in a good situation either. After launching the joint skill and lending their spiritual energy to Yiksha, their strength had been greatly reduced. After seeing Lu Chen's method several times, even if they saw Lu Chen flying in the air, they were still a little shaky. None of the 5 people dared to move. Lu Chen looked at the 5 of them. I'll ask again, where is Li Wei? Thinking of that woman, Lu Chen's heart ached. In order to save the 2 disciples of the demonic academy, she went to the secret passage alone. In order to protect Lu Chen, she was willing to sacrifice herself. Along the way, Lu Chen was saving people, but this woman was in danger to save him. Regardless of the favor, as long as she was still alive, Lu Chen would definitely save her. Solipsistic, you're very strong, but so what? Kumu glared at Lu Chen. In the underworld, the Dead Soul City is the weakest, and you only defeated tens of thousands of army of the dead and defeated the spirit envoys of the Dead Soul City. If the Soul King of the Dead Soul City comes, you can't even take one move. Not to mention Ghost Soldier City, Nightmare City, and the King of Hell's Palace. I'm not afraid to tell you that the woman you're talking about has been sent to the King of Hell's Palace. Let's see if you have the ability to save her. Yazi said fiercely, I know you won't let us go, but your woman can't escape misfortune. Remember, if the King of Hell wants you to die at midnight, no one will let you live until midnight. Lu Chen snorted, if so, the problem is very simple. I can only kill the King of Hell. Chapter 1034. Old C, I'll leave these 5 people to you. Remember, don't kill them. You're not easy to kill. After Lu Chen finished speaking, he swooped back to the ground. Lu Chen had no strength to fight, but the strength of Kumu and the others had plummeted, so he didn't need to do anything. The powerhouses of the 3 academies were already hungry and thirsty. A large group of people rushed out of the 3 academies and beat them up. The 3 great masters and 3 great spirit envoys were doomed to be beaten up. At this time, the hostages on the Iron Pillar had been rescued. Looking back, the whole ghost plane had been changed beyond recognition. There were traces of flowing magma everywhere. Huge cracks opened up a big hole in the plane, and magma was still flowing into the abyss. As soon as Lu Chen came back, he was surrounded by a group of people. Dean! Great, you're still alive. Don't push, the Dean is too tired. A sea of clouds walked to Lu Chen. After Lu Chen saw him, he said to a sea of clouds, Old Sea, I can't fight now. We have to leave the underworld for the time being. At this time, the people of the celestial fortress made way, and an old man walked forward. Hearing that the disciples of the demonic academy called him Nameless Dean, he hesitated and followed suit. Nameless Dean, our pavilion master wants to invite you over for a chat. His hands and feet are cut off, so it's really inconvenient. Lu Chen nodded. With the help of Yi Tian and a sea of clouds, he came to Hixing. Although Hixing was seriously injured, his hands and feet were saved, but it seemed that he needed time to recover. Nameless little brother, I'm Hixing, the pavilion master of the Tianya Pavilion in the Celestial Fortress. I'm also the master of Ironwood. Lu Chen clasped his hands and said, Pavilion Master Hixing, I'm sorry for what happened to Brother Ironwood. Hixing sighed. Let's talk about that later. We have important matters to discuss in the netherworld. I can see that little brother Nameless isn't in a good state, so we shouldn't stay here for long. We need to leave the netherworld as soon as possible. However, the flourishing Source Continent and the Azure Marsh Continent are very far apart. If we go back on our own, it'll be very difficult for us to discuss this matter together. I think that if it's possible, we should invite little brother Nameless to my Azure Marsh Continent. Lu Chen frowned. It would be best for him to return to the Demonic Academy. But on the other hand, the Demonic Academy could only be regarded as famous in the Xingzi mainland, but not prestigious. The opening of the gate to the underworld was not something that the Demonic Academy alone could stop. However, the Celestial Fortress was different. Their status in the Azure Marsh Continent was similar to that of the Zhongxian Gu. They could be regarded as the headquarters of the Azure Marsh Continent, so they definitely had a say. Little brother Nameless, I know that you want to return to the Demonic Academy. After all, the Demonic Academy is also damaged, but... Hixing saw that Lu Chen was hesitating and continued, but if the netherworld really invades the Yang world, it's not just a matter of our 3 academies. Little brother Nameless, this matter indeed requires us to work together to deal with. Besides, even if we don't gain anything, I, Hixing, can guarantee that I will definitely send little brother Nameless back to the flourishing Source Continent. Lu Chen thought for a while and finally nodded. Okay, I'll go with you. Brother Ironwood died for me, so I must settle this account with them. Escort the nameless army of the dead back to the Celestial Fortress. Yao He also walked over. Senior Hixing, if you don't mind me being a burden, would also like to go with you. Li Wei is my good sister, I won't give up until I find her. Lu Chen looked at Yao He and said, Dean Yao He, as long as Li Wei is still alive, I will definitely save her. Hixing also said, then please leave with us. Everyone needs to move quickly in case their reinforcements arrive. Just now, the commotion here wasn't small. According to the spirit envoy, their Soul King seems to be returning to the city. If we really encounter them, it will be very troublesome. Lu Chen quickly explained to a sea of clouds and the others, and reminded them to wait for his news. Then, he left with the Celestial Fortress. Lu Chen was just about to leave with the Celestial Fortress when Yifan and Chu Tian, carrying Xiao Zhan, quickly caught up with Lu Chen. Dean, senior uncle asked us to follow you. Yifan said as he helped Lu Chen up. As soon as he started, Yifan felt that his hand was heavy. It seemed that the dean was still forcing himself to hurry on, but in fact, he was already very weak. Lu Chen thought for a moment. It seemed that a sea of clouds and the others were worried about him. After all, he had almost no combat power now. Alright, but it's fine if you two come, but what is Xiao Zhan doing here? Lu Chen looked at Xiao Zhan with a look of disgust. A sea of clouds didn't ask him to come, but Xiao Zhan insisted on following. I already told him that it's useless to bring a trash like him, but he just wouldn't listen. Chu Tian said honestly. Xiao Zhan was very embarrassed. Damn, you guys are too realistic. Yifan, I was injured to save you. I'm only injured now, I'm not dead yet. I'll be of use once I recover. Once you recover, I'll have to trouble you to carry me back to Prosperous Origin Continent from the Azure Pond Continent. Chu Tian said in a bad mood. So heavy. It's fine if you want me to carry a beauty, but carrying a fellow like you is really torturous. These 3 fellows, if they weren't bickering, they would feel uncomfortable all over. In order to prevent more army of the dead from coming, the three academies quickly brought their injured students, Celestial Fortress, and Ironwood's corpse to quickly retreat. Half an hour later, a million-strong army of the dead rushed to the Spectre Plains. When they saw the mess here, they were all shocked. In the middle of the army, two single-horned black dragons were lying on the ground with a palanquin on their backs. A demon soul jumped onto the dragon's back, came to the palanquin, and said softly, looking at the marks on the ground, "They've been gone for a while." A low voice came from inside. Solipsistic, actually climbed out of the myriad tribulation abyss and obtained the power of the underworld's earth fire. Humph, interesting, Lord Soul King, should we chase? Or, should this subordinate enter the Yang world and kill him? A faint voice came from inside. Chase. There's no need. We still have his women in our hands. I believe he'll come back sooner or later. Moreover, the Myriad Soul Palace is about to open. This is the most important thing. Nothing else can delay this matter. Now that the three soul envoys are dead or captured, I don't have many people I can use. Nightmare, you stay by my side. Yes. Nightmare accepts the order. Lu Chen and Yao He each took a few disciples and followed the people of Celestial Fortress to their teleportation point. Romer happened to be among them. At this time, she was humbly asking Yi Fan for advice. Yi Fan was focused on supporting Lu Chen and didn't seem to want to talk to Romer. Romer was a bit afraid of Lu Chen and didn't dare to ask. She ran back, looking quite aggrieved. Lu Chen frowned slightly. Yi Fan, that girl seems to like you. Yi Fan frowned. Dean, don't talk nonsense. Who would like someone like me? Lu Chen shook his head. Yi Fan, the dean is experienced. You have to trust my judgment. She definitely likes you. That girl isn't bad either. The academy won't object to the two of you dual cultivating. Really? Yi Fan looked at Lu Chen. Dean, if that's the case, you must have had many close female friends in the past. But how come I've never seen them before? Haha, close female friends. Well, how do I put it? It's a long story. Lu Chen realized that his students weren't polite to him at all. They directly threw out such a sharp question, so he hurriedly avoided it. Fortunately, they quickly reached the exit. Azure Pond Continent. Lu Chen, Yi Fan, Chu Tian, and Xiao Zhan all let out a sigh. Their expressions were the same, filled with anticipation. Yao He shook her head as she watched. If one were to say that Principal Nameless was ignorant, he was really no different from his students. He had never even left Prosperous Fountain before. Chapter 1035. Wu Xian and Skyfall followed the team of gods and demons back to the demonic academy. They didn't speak along the way. A sea of clouds saw them and walked to them. What's wrong? Are you being honest now? Skyfall lowered his head. Uncle, we harmed everyone. We harmed Senior Li Wei and Senior Ironwood. A sea of clouds smiled and patted Skyfall's shoulder. Although you two didn't say anything and directly entered the underworld, it's not all your fault. Tian also walked over. The gate to the underworld will open sooner or later. It's a good thing that you discovered it in time. This is a big deal for the whole sixth heaven. It's because you discovered it early that we had time to prepare. Moreover, the number of casualties is already the minimum. Wu Xian sighed. Uncle Tian, we sigh, now that Senior Li Wei's life is uncertain, Skyfall and I can't absolve ourselves from the blame. A sea of clouds narrowed his eyes. Dean Li Wei is in danger because of our demonic academy. We will save her at all costs. But instead of blaming yourselves, it's better for you two to rest. I'm afraid that the war between the underworld and the Yang world is inevitable. At that time, I'll need your strength. Skyfall and Wuxian looked at each other and nodded heavily. We'll do our best to redeem ourselves. The entrance to the underworld on the Qingze continent was also deep underground. However, the entrance to the underworld was already guarded by hundreds of cultivators. Since the last time the messenger from the underworld sent a letter, Celestial Fortress had sent people to seal the entrance. Seeing the people from Celestial Fortress come out, the guards hurried to greet them. On the way, Lu Chen was not in good spirits and He Xing was seriously injured. The mentors from Celestial Fortress had a brief exchange with the guards and continued on their way. Everyone, pay attention. The underworld impact has just passed. We need to hurry to the surface. Yi Fan realized that the director was getting weaker and weaker. He could barely lift his eyes. The dean would definitely not be able to handle such a rapid march. He immediately carried Lu Chen on his back and followed the group. After exiting the tunnel, Yi Fan and the others discovered that there were many guards guarding the entrance to the gate of the underworld. The entrance to the underworld on their side seems to have been exposed a long time ago. Chu Tian said, "This side is marked as exit number 3, which means that there are other exits." Xiao Zhan said, "There are also many forks in the tunnel over there. The exit of the Cliff of Reflection seems to be just one of them." Chu Tian frowned, "Although there are many exits, if the underworld starts a war, I'm afraid our academy will become the center of the battle." Yi Fan nodded. "I didn't think that something like this would happen in the 6th heaven. Let's wait for the dean to rest before we discuss it." Soon, Celestial Fortress disciples came to welcome the group. They drove a few mounts, and everyone got on their mounts and headed to the World Edge Pavilion headquarters. The Qingze continent was about the same size as the Xingyuan continent. It was also an independent planet with its own continent and sea. However, the Qingze continent's land was more scattered, and the vast sea divided the continent into several regions. Because of the different terrain, Celestial Fortress and Zhongxian Ji's management methods were also different. Zhongxian Ji's headquarters only had one place, Idle Cloud Mountain, while Celestial Fortress had 8 large branches. They were scattered among the few continents, making it easier to manage. The World Edge Pavilion was one of the 8 large branches of Celestial Fortress. It had the smallest territory among the 8 branches, and its headquarters was located on a rather large island. The gate of the Underworld number 3 was not far from the World Edge Pavilion headquarters. In less than half an hour, everyone landed on the island. Then, the injured members of the World Edge Pavilion were immediately sent for treatment. Very soon, people came to settle down Lu Chen, Yao He, and the others. "Fellow Taoists," the pavilion master said that the nameless dean is not in a good state and needs to rest. "Please follow me to rest, and we will discuss countermeasures tomorrow," an elegant middle-aged man said politely. Yao He cupped her fists and said, "Thank you, Immortal Master." Celestial Fortress's status was similar to Zhongxian Ji's. Normally, the disciples here would be the same as Zhongxian Ji's disciples, and Yao He had to address them as Immortal Master. Unexpectedly, the middle-aged man smiled and said, "Dean Yao He, I dare not call myself Immortal Master. How could a mere 9-star Theo the Great dare to call himself immortal? I am Chuan He, you can look for me directly if you have any problems." Yi Fan and the others had a good impression of Chuan He. At least, he was not like the people from Zhongxian Gu, who were immortal masters, Sengoku, and immortal masters. They made it seem as if they had already ascended. Everyone was brought to a small, secluded courtyard and temporarily settled down. Lu Chen was taken care of by Little Green, while Yi Fan and the others returned to their rooms to rest. Late at night, Yao He walked out of her room and saw Chu Tian sitting in the courtyard. "Senior Yao He." Chu Tian hurriedly stood up when he saw Yao He. "Chu Tian, you're still awake." "I'm not sleepy. This is someone else's territory. The dean is unconscious, and Yi Fan and Xiao Zhan are both injured. It's better for me to keep an eye on them." Yao He sized up Chu Tian. This child was really meticulous and strong. A disciple of the demonic academy is really extraordinary. Senior Yao He, you flatter me. Oh right, Senior, it's already so late. Why are you still awake? Yao He sighed and sat down. I can't sleep. Li Wei's whereabouts are still unknown. Senior Yao He, you must believe in our dean. He said that he would rescue Senior Li Wei. He definitely won't go back on his words. I believe him. However, I find it strange. Everyone else is being used as bait, but Li Wei is being escorted to the King of Hell's palace. Why are they treating her differently? Speaking of this, Chu Tian's brows knit together tightly as well. Could it be that Senior Li Wei has other uses for them? Yes, I'm also worried about this. Chu Tian thought for a while and said, Senior Yao He, if it's really like this, it might be a good thing. They won't immediately harm Senior Li Wei. Yao He's worried expression did not lessen at all. She sighed. I've thought about what you said. However, if it's like this, the difficulty of rescuing her will become even greater. Do we really have to do what Nameless said and kill the King of Hell, the Demon Lord? The Underworld's 4 regions were stronger than the previous one. Even in the City of Dead Souls, they had only defeated 3 spirit envoys. It was too difficult to rescue someone from the King of Hell's city. Even though Lu Chen had made a promise, but compared to the difficulty of rescuing her, this made Yao He unable to sleep at night. Yao He glanced at Lu Chen's room. It was still lit, and Miss Lu was busy decocting medicine. Lu Chen could not take pills to recover, but there were some herbs that could adjust his condition. Although the effect was minimal, Lu Yi had never stopped trying. John Doe, can you really save Li Wei? Yao He sighed softly and turned around to return to her room. The next day, Lu Chen slept and recovered a lot. His fatigue was not as strong as before, and even his recovery was faster than before. Soon, Chuanyi came to the door and said that the important figures of the 8 pavilions in the Celestial Fortress, as well as the higher-ups of the academies, had all been invited by He Xing. He invited everyone to the Tianya Conference Hall to discuss important matters. Lu Chen pushed the door open and found that Yi Fan and the others were already waiting in the courtyard. Dean. Lu Chen nodded. Let's go. The war is imminent, we must race against time. Chapter 1036. Under Chuanyi's lead, everyone came to the Celestial Edge Conference Hall in the center of the island. At this time, the hall was full. There were at least 10,000 people. Because there were so many people had no seats and could only stand outside. He Xing saw Lu Chen from afar and quickly came to greet him with his 2 disciples. Nameless brother, how's your recovery? Lu Chen looked at He Xing. This guy's limbs were all back. It seemed that the Celestial Fortress's medical skills were good. Lu Chen was still very tired, but it was not a big deal. He cupped his fists and said, pretty good. There are more people here today. Usually, our seats are fixed, so we'll have 5 deans for the time being. Deans Yaohe will sit here temporarily. Lu Chen gave it a quick glance. The main seats were all for the Heavenly Immortal Castle's Pavilion Master. Next were the seats for the 2 Immortal Academies. There were also representatives from Immortal Academies sitting there. After that was the Sacred Academy. Not even the principals of ordinary academies had seats. The 2 seats on his side seemed to be added at the last minute. He guessed that with the level of Divine Demon and Foam Lai, they could sit there because He Xing had fought for them. It doesn't matter where you sit, Lu Chen said. Then, he asked Yaohe to take a seat and sat next to her. The disciples behind He Xing also cupped their fists and greeted Yi Fan and the other 2. They exchanged some pleasantries. The deans around them all looked at Lu Chen in surprise. Who are these people? Why is Pavilion Master He Xing treating them personally? Huh? 7-star field Grand Cultivators. Am I seeing things? I heard that the Celestial Edge Pavilion joined forces with other academies to defeat the army of the dead. These two must be the representatives of those two academies. But, their levels are too low. Lu Chen was used to such looks. He ignored the discussions around him and sat down leisurely. After Lu Chen sat down, He Xing stood up and told everyone what had happened in the underworld. Everyone, we have now confirmed that the unknown portals that appeared in the various continents are the gates of the underworld. We have tested it before. Each entrance can only hold 800 people at a time. However, the various forces of the netherworld are rushing to open up the gates to the netherworld. I believe that the upper limit of each entrance will be greatly increased soon. In addition, we learned from them that they are preparing to open the Myriad Soul Palace. It seems that once it opens, they will launch a large-scale invasion of the Yang world. There was an uproar below the stage. The netherworld really exists. They are attacking the Yang world. Hiss. I've heard that many unknown portals have appeared in other continents as well. If the underworld is really attacking the Yang realm, then the scale of this battle is unimaginable. He Xing continued, they're currently storing Yang energy. Although we don't have any concrete information about their progress, we speculate that they're nearing the end. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in such a hurry to open the Myriad Soul Palace and launch a large-scale attack on the Yang world. As for Yang Qi, based on the information we've received so far, it should be able to help them fight in the Yang realm and eliminate the influence of the Yang realm on them. There was a moment of silence below the stage. No one knew what to do in the face of such a shocking change. Right now, the netherworld is restless, and the army of the dead is powerful. In this rescue operation, we encountered the weakest army of the dead, but even so, we were almost wiped out. He Xing continued, if they can use Yang energy to offset the Yang realm's restrictions, then the army of the dead, the army of the dead, the army of the dead, the army of the nightmare, and the King of Hell's army will work together. Even if the battlefield is in the Yang world, the strength of the Netherworld army will still be unimaginable. One of the representatives from the Immortal Academy suddenly asked, He Xing, I think you're being a bit alarmist. 800 of you went to the Netherworld, and according to what you said, you only lost a few people even though your strength was greatly reduced. Moreover, you defeated tens of thousands of army of the dead, saved the hostages, and even captured the captives. In my opinion, the army of the dead is just so. After this person finished speaking, another representative from the Immortal Academy next to him also said, indeed. Although the Sky Edge Pavilion is also full of hidden talents, to be honest, the strength of the Sky Edge Pavilion should be the weakest among the 8 pavilions in the Celestial Fortress. If 800 people from the Sky Edge Pavilion can kill tens of thousands of enemies, then is the army of the dead really that terrifying? Even if they swarm out, I'm afraid we'll be able to kill them easily. He Xing shook his head. Everyone, you're wrong. The Sky Edge Pavilion did send 800 people to the Netherworld, but we're not the only one who went to the Netherworld to rescue people. The Demonic Academy and the Fenglai Academy from the Prosperous Source Continent also went with us. There's a total of 1,800 people. 1,800 people is not a lot. The Pavilion Master of the Celestial Fortress Pavilion objected. According to this ratio, one person can fight against 100 people. The Pavilion Master of the Sky Veil Pavilion asked, He Xing, this is a serious matter. We need to know more about the strength of both sides. I want to ask, what is the level of the Demonic Academy and the Fenglai Academy in the Prosperous Source Continent? This. He Xing was a little embarrassed, but everyone around him was waiting for his answer. In the end, he said, the Fenglai Academy is a sacred academy, and it should be ranked in the top 15 in the Prosperous Source Continent. As for the Demonic Academy. Cough, cough, the Demonic Academy is a newly established lower academy, and it's currently unranked. There was another commotion below the stage. A few Sacred Academy deans who were ranked at the top shook their heads and said, the top 15 Sacred Academies are worth a look, but the Demonic Academy can be ignored directly. This means that the army of the dead is indeed not strong. The pavilion masters of the celestial fortress were also whispering to each other. I checked the overall strength of the prosperous source continent, and it's not ranked in the 6th heaven. There isn't even a single immortal academy. If the Fenglai Academy can't even be ranked in the top 10, it shouldn't be strong either. In the end, it's mainly because of the 800 people from the Sky Edge Pavilion. That's right. Moreover, He Xing said that there were almost no casualties in this operation. Ironwood was killed by the Netherworld. I'm afraid He Xing is deliberately exaggerating because he's angry. The pavilion master of the Sky Veil Pavilion asked, Junior brother He Xing, I heard that the reason you were able to return safely was because the Nameless Academy master killed tens of thousands of people in the army of the dead by himself. Can you let the Nameless Academy master explain the situation to everyone? He Xing nodded and walked up to Nameless. These people still don't realize the seriousness of the situation. Sigh, I'm not good with words. Thank you, Brother Nameless. Lu Chen smiled. It was normal for practical people to be not good with words. Pavilion Master, you don't have to blame yourself. They haven't experienced it themselves, so it's inevitable that they have doubts. He stood up and walked to the center of the stage. He cupped his fists and said, Deans, Pavilion Masters, I'm the Academy Master of the Demonic Academy. Nameless. If you have any questions, you can ask me directly. Chapter 1037. As soon as Lu Chen stepped out, there was an uproar below the stage. He's nameless. Why is he called solipsistic? 7-star field great cultivator. What the hell? I really don't know the strength of the army of the dead. They said that the celestial fortress couldn't resist them, and they also said that tens of thousands of people were wiped out by this person. Is the bottom line of the prosperous source continent so low? A 7-star great cultivator can be the dean. He Xing was from the celestial fortress and had prestige in the Azure Marsh continent. However, Lu Chen was different. Apart from the people of the World Edge Pavilion who respected Lu Chen, no one else respected him. Yi Fan shook his head and said to Chu Tian and Xiao Zhan, the World Edge Pavilion isn't the only big one here. Even with Senior He Xing's recommendation, they still don't recognize the dean. Chu Tian laughed. Are you worried that the dean can't control the situation? I think you should be worried that the dean won't tear down other people's houses. Xiao Zhan's expression was serious. I bet a spirit cleansing pill that the dean can control the situation in 3 minutes. Romer looked at Yi Fan and the other two in surprise. These 3 guys were actually betting on the dean behind his back. Hey, your dean has just recovered. He can't use the star-burning move again, right? Romer joined the discussion. Besides, there are so many experts here, and there are people from Immortal Academy. Nameless Dean will more or less restrain himself. Chu Tian shook his head regretfully. That's hard to say. With the dean's personality, as long as it's not the Demonic Academy, he won't care. While they were talking, the strong people of the Azure Marsh continent began to question Lu Chen. Nameless Dean, Pavilion Master, he said that the underworld is extremely strong, but he also said that you killed tens of thousands of the army of the dead alone. Isn't this a bit contradictory? Nameless, to put it bluntly, you're just a 7-star great cultivator. It's already good enough that you don't need anyone to protect you. What makes you think you can turn the tide? If you say that the disciples of the World Edge Pavilion fought with their lives to create an opportunity for you, I might believe it. But if you say that you fought against tens of thousands of people alone, either the army of the dead is useless, or it's just a fantasy. Nameless, your Demonic Academy is only a lower academy, and the Fenglai Academy is not strong. Was it because the people of the Tianya Pavilion were covering for you that you could not win? Please make it clear. Lu Chen already understood. The Greenfen mainland was not a place where a single person had the final say. As a result, although the World's Edge Pavilion had prestige, it was not as dominant as the Zhongxian Gu. In addition, this kind of divide and conquer situation would inevitably lead to disagreements within Celestial Fortress. The pavilion masters did not seem to be completely convinced by He Xing. As a result, it was even more difficult to unify the differences. Even if the disciples of the World Edge Pavilion said so, the others might not fully believe it. Faced with all kinds of doubts, Lu Chen looked at everyone indifferently and said, "Since you don't believe what the disciples of the World Edge Pavilion said, I will calculate the combat power of the army of the dead for you. We have captured 2 of the 3 spirit envoys. They are not in the top positions in the army of the dead, but they lead 100,000 soldiers and are 2-star ghost kings. May I ask the deans, how many Saint Academies have more than 3 2-star ghost kings? This is only the spirit envoys. Above the spirit envoys are the spirit generals, spirit commanders, spirit guardians, and spirit kings. In terms of realm, can the Celestial Fortress withstand such a lineup?" The pavilion masters of the Celestial Fortress frowned. Lu Chen continued, "This time, we did not meet a stronger opponent because their experts were busy opening the Eternal Soul Palace. The Spirit Kings also happened to go to the King of Hell to meet with the other leaders. To put it simply, what we saw was only the tip of the iceberg of the army of the dead. Among the 4 main cities of the underworld, the City of the Dead Souls is the weakest. If the City of the Dead Souls has such a terrifying military force, then the strength of ghost soldiers, Bai Ling, and the King of Hell can be imagined." Lu Chen looked at everyone and said unhurriedly, "Now, let's talk about the Eternal Soul Palace. I guess the number of dead souls there is simply incalculable. How many years has the 6th heaven existed, and how many people have died? I saw millions of graves in the immortal corpse mound in the Xingyuan continent alone. I think the Qingze continent is also difficult to calculate. How many continents are there in the 6th heaven? Incalculable number of dead souls. If they can recover their original combat power in the Yan world, who can stop them? Entrances to the underworld have already appeared in various continents. This means that the underworld's ambition is not overnight. They have already started preparing. At this time, if they are not completely confident, why would they expose themselves now?" Lu Chen's deduction made many people fall into deep thought. The pavilion master of the Sky Veil Pavilion said, "Nameless, we have also thought of the situation you mentioned. It is because of this that we have gathered almost all the academies in the Qingze continent. However, what I want to know is the combat power of the army of the dead. There are some parts of what junior brother He Xing said that I can't understand." Lu Chen nodded. "So you still have doubts about the previous battle?" From everyone's eyes, it could be seen that they had tacitly agreed with Lu Chen's statement. Lu Chen thought for a while and said to He Xing, "Senior He Xing, do you have anything to test one's strength here?" "Yes." He Xing said, "The disciples of the World Edge Pavilion have to go through 3 tests, the 4-dimensional strength testing stone, the fighting soul strength testing stone, and the elemental testing stone." Lu Chen said, "Then please bring it up." "Well, because the value of the test data is too high, the 3 strength testing stones need to be fixed at the base, so they cannot be moved in the martial arts arena." Lu Chen nodded and then said to everyone, "The biggest contradiction in the previous battle was that the 800 Celestial Fortress disciples couldn't win, but I killed tens of thousands of the army of the dead. This made you feel that it was too contradictory. Then, it's very simple. Please move to the martial arts arena and test it on the spot. Your doubts will then be eliminated." Everyone's face was filled with astonishment. "Our doubts will be eliminated after a test. Humph, Nameless is young, but he has a big mouth. Test. That's good. I want to see what a 7-star field Grand Cultivator can do." The World Edge Pavilion Strength Testing Stone is said to have the highest limit in the Qingze continent. Ordinary people don't have the chance to test it. This time, I'll go and broaden my horizons. 800 disciples from the celestial immortal castle couldn't even win, but he turned the situation around by himself. If it wasn't for the Crane Pavilion Lord, I would have turned against him on the spot. Do you think we're idiots? Let's go and see what waves he can make. The pavilion master of the Sky Veil Pavilion stood up first. Alright, the strength testing stone is the most persuasive. This old man will go and take a look. The other pavilion masters also stood up. Seeing this, the other deans also left their seats. The tens of thousands of people with the most authority in the Qingzi continent headed to the martial arts arena. Yi Fan and the other two followed behind Lu Chen. Yi Fan caught up with Lu Chen and said, "Dean, you're still weak. Testing will hurt your vitality." Lu Chen looked back at Yi Fan and the other two and frowned. Who said I'm going to test it? Ah. Dean, you're not going to test it. I'm not going to test it, but you three are. It just so happens that our academy doesn't have such an advanced strength testing stone. You guys can test it. After Lu Chen finished speaking, he leisurely walked to the martial arts arena. Yi Fan, Chu Tian, and Xiao Zhan looked at each other. No way. We're going to test it. Chapter 1038. The arena of the World Edge Pavilion was much larger than that of the Demonic Academy. It almost took up half of the island. Even the ground was made of special rocks. It was said that the ground was made of rare black tortoise meteorite rocks. In the northwest corner of the arena stood 4 huge mountains, each of which was like a small hill. Damn! Are those the test stones? No wonder we can't move them. Xiao Zhan's eyes were wide open. He had never seen such a large test stone. Lu Chen was slightly surprised, and said to Chuanhe beside him, "Why are there 4 testing stones?" "Oh, here's the thing. 3 of them are the strength test stone, the strength test stone, the strength test stone, and the element test stone. The last one is the pet test stone, which is only used by beast tamers and puppet masters." Lu Chen nodded. The World Edge Pavilion was indeed well equipped. It was just that he didn't know where Lu Chen's battle pets were. Otherwise, he would have been able to test them. By the way, Rhubarb. Lu Chen suddenly remembered that he had another battle pet. Should I ask Rhubarb to test it? Lu Chen thought about it and decided not to. In terms of combat ability, the battle pet would drag down the average score. Do the test stones measure attributes in 4 dimensions? Lu Chen asked again. Chuanhe explained, "No, what our celestial immortal castle pursues is actual combat ability. Therefore, the 4 great testing stones only test the value of combat ability." Lu Chen was confused. How do you measure combat ability? Chuanhe smiled patiently. During the test, you will have to use 2 different moves in a row. The test stones will take the opportunity to measure the flow of spiritual power in your body and give you a total combat ability score. Lu Chen nodded. He didn't understand the principle, but he felt that it was impressive. Not long after, everyone had gathered in front of the 4 testing boulders. The disciples of the World Edge Pavilion were testing the 3 test stones. Soon, they were done. To make the results more convincing, He Xing said to everyone, "The testing is done. You can send representatives to test the stones first to confirm the results." Many people were very interested in it. The Tianya Pavilion's testing stone. It is said that not only is the upper limit high, but it is also very sensitive. I have only heard of it in the past, but I have never personally tested it. This is a rare opportunity. Dean, can I give it a try? We can also let the people of Xingyuan continent see the strength of our Azure Fan continent. Crane Pavilion Master, can I let my disciple try? Many representatives expressed their interest in testing the strength testing stone. Naturally, He Xing wouldn't refuse. Then let's find 10 disciples each to test. Take note, if the number is too low, the strength testing stone won't show the result. As soon as Xing said this, the disciples who were eager to give it a try hesitated. If he couldn't perform well in front of so many people, not only would he embarrass himself, he would also embarrass the academy. However, there were still experts. Soon after, there were 10 disciples from various academies standing in front of each testing stone. All of these people were disciples from top-notch sacred academies. There were even disciples from the 2 immortal academies and the other 7 pavilions of Heaven Immortal Pavilion. For them, the main thing was to test the accuracy of the debugging results. There were not many disciples taking the test, so Xing let them take the test one by one. The first test was the physical body test. The first tester came from a top-notch sacred academy. Under the request of the disciples of World Edge Pavilion, he didn't use the soul-body fusion state. After throwing a punch at the testing stone, he quickly changed his move and attacked with his sword. Physical combat strength, 126. Cross-level ability, 0, 48 stars. Rating, below average talent. There was a burst of discussion in the surroundings. He seems to be from Wulong's Sacred Academy. He's only rated as excellent talent. Heaven Immortal Pavilion's requirements are really high. That person glanced at the final result and shook his head. In his mind, he should be a peerless genius. How come there was only an excellent talent and a below-average talent? It seemed that it was indeed difficult to enter the celestial fortress. Soon, the second tester came forward. After a lot of preparation, he threw a punch at the testing stone and quickly changed his move. Physical combat strength, 89. Cross-level ability, 0, 56 stars. Rating, above average talent. The result of this test was also excellent talent. Although his combat strength was low, his ability to fight above his level was higher than the previous one. His final rating was also higher than the previous one. It should be because his cultivation level was low, so his combat strength was low. However, his potential was higher than the previous one. Physical combat strength, 286. Cross-level ability, 0, 31 stars. Rating, below average talent. Physical combat strength, 417. Cross-level ability, 2, 13 stars. Rating, above average talent. Physical combat strength, 403. Cross-level ability, 1, 32 stars. Rating, below average talent. Soon, all 10 testers were done. The difference in combat strength was huge. However, combat strength wasn't the main point. The key was the ability to fight above one's level. The weakest one could only fight above one's level by less than half a star. The 2 strongest disciples could fight above one's level by 2 stars. There were 3 people who reached the standard of genius. They were the disciples of the 2 great academies and the Heavenly Veil Pavilion. After the test, the Heavenly Veil Pavilion disciple returned to his side and nodded to the Heavenly Veil Pavilion master. The data is accurate. These people had all been tested. Everyone's eyes fell on Lu Chen. This guy. He's a 7-star great cultivator. His combat strength shouldn't be displayed, right? To be honest, I don't believe that his combat strength can exceed 10. Let's just watch him take the test. When the results are out, their excuses will naturally fall apart. Lu Chen glanced at Yi Fan and the other 2. Which one of you will go? I'll go. Yi Fan looked at Xiao Zhan and Chu Tian. Neither of them had any objections. Seeing Yi Fan walk forward, many people raised their doubts. Nameless, you're not going to take the test, but you're letting your disciple do it. What's the meaning of this? Lu Chen smiled. You're not the only one who's doubting me. You're also doubting my demonic academy. Then, I'll send a disciple to take the test. Everyone wanted to say something, but Yi Fan suddenly said, the dean has just gone through a great battle and is weak. Is there a problem with letting a disciple do it? The dean has just saved 800 people from Celestial Fortress. You want him to take the test in such a weakened state? Facing the various deans, Yi Fan was not afraid at all. The Sky Veil Pavilion disciple who had just taken the test snorted. You have no respect for your elders. Fine, you want to take the test, right? Sure, I'd like to see how strong a lower house disciple like you is in actual combat. Yi Fan snorted, walked to the strength testing stone, and quickly activated it. Looking at the strength testing stone in front of him, Yi Fan's eyes widened in anger. This punch was related to the integration of the academy, so he had to give it his all. Violent spiritual energy poured out in an instant. Then, Yi Fan punched the strength testing stone. In an instant, he quickly changed his move and struck out with a Buddhist seal. The interval between the two attacks was so fast that only a loud sound was heard. After a while, the strength testing stone gave the final data. Combat strength, 586. Overlevel ability, 6, 13 stars. Rating, unparalleled. Lu Chen looked at the data and nodded in satisfaction. As expected of an orange card. Chapter 1039. Everyone was stunned. Yi Fan's cross-level ability was above 6, which meant he could cross 6 stars. In Theo the Great's era, those who could cross levels were all geniuses. Immortal Academy's recruitment standard was to cross 2 stars. However, a lower house disciple had crossed 6 stars. A peerless genius. Fuck. A certain dean's eyes turned red. If he could recruit such a disciple, he would wake up laughing in his dreams. Yi Fan didn't seem satisfied with his results. Only 6 stars? That shouldn't be. The group almost collapsed when they heard him talking to himself. This guy was actually not satisfied with his performance. Chu Tian and Xiao Zhan couldn't stay calm when they saw Yi Fan's data. This test is quite interesting, Chu Tian said. Dean, our academy is poor and we don't have such things. Since we're here, I want to try it too. Lu Chen's face darkened. How can you say that? Our academy isn't poor. Our academy doesn't even have enough spirit stones to spend. We do have a lot of spirit stones, but that's because you exploited the disciples. The key is resources. Our academy's resources are snatched by exchanging disciples. How can we not be poor? Chu Tian muttered. Lu Chen rolled his eyes at Chu Tian. Heh, this kid is actually telling the truth. Go. I know you guys are itching for a try. I'll go talk to Senior Hixing. After saying goodbye to Hixing, Chu Tian and Xiao Zhan also went to test. Hey, don't use sword chi. I don't think it's powerful enough. Yi Fan didn't forget to tell the two of them when he came back. Chu Tian nodded. After some preparation, he used 2 melee skills on the strength testing stone. Physical combat strength, 626. Cross-level ability, 6, 23 stars. Rating, peerless. Fuck, only 6. 23 stars. Chu Tian was disappointed. Yi Fan didn't perform well, but his was only 6. 23. According to his estimation, he should be at least 7 or 8 stars. Hee, senior brother is only a so-so. Move. Xiao Zhan pushed the dumbfounded Chu Tian aside and walked straight to the testing stone. Xiao Zhan, your injuries haven't healed yet. Are you sure you want to humiliate yourself? Yi Fan said. TCH, do I, Xiao Zhan, need to use my full strength? I can easily kill you 2 pieces of trash. Xiao Zhan said smugly. He had prepared a large number of enhancement skills, and he immediately threw 2 punches. Physical combat strength, 406. Cross-level ability, 4, 18 stars. Rating, detected physical damage. Rating excluding interference unparalleled. As soon as Xiao Zhan's results came out, a burst of laughter came from behind him. Ha 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 ha, only 4. Ha ha ha, Xiao Zhan, I already told you that you're asking to be humiliated, but you still don't believe me. Chu Tian laughed until his stomach hurt. Only 4. Ha ha ha, trash. Yi Fan shook his head. Tell me, a cripple like you dares to take the test. Don't you think it's embarrassing? Xiao Zhan's face was full of shame and anger. My spiritual energy isn't running smoothly, so my attributes are discounted. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so low. Stop explaining. Chu Tian finally stopped. Io, what the fuck? You've been preparing for so long. Pfft. Combat power is only 400. Ha ha ha, trash. Xiao Zhan, don't call me senior brother in the future. It's too embarrassing. Xiao Zhan's face was full of grievance. I don't accept this. Wait until I recover. My combat power won't be this low. It will definitely be higher than both of you. Yi Fan coldly snorted. Don't talk about next time, okay? I didn't perform well just now. If you let me take the test again and I can't exceed 7 stars, I'll write my name upside down. However, no matter how bad it is, it shouldn't be 4 stars. Senior brother Xiao Zhan, your results are indeed a little shabby. If Wu Xian and Skyfall knew about it, I'm afraid they won't be able to raise their heads in the future. Don't. Junior brother Yi Fan, what are you doing? We're all brothers who have gone through life and death together. Don't talk about this when you go back. Xiao Zhan hurriedly pulled Yi Fan back. Senior brother, I've been a little tight on money recently. Senior brother Xian Jia has been forcing me to pay him back. You see. Yi Fan looked at Xiao Zhan. Xiao Zhan's face turned white. 2,000. I don't have much left after paying the school fees. 20,000. Yi Fan decisively raised the price. When you went to Fomlai previously, I think you bought dozens of sets of clothes. This amount of money is nothing to you. 20,000. Yi Fan, you've really gone astray. 5,000 is the most I can give you. I even fucking saved your life. Isn't 15,000 enough? Fine. 5,000 it is. Xiao Zhan breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Yi Fan was poor and easier to fool. The 3 of them continued to tease each other, but the people around them were already dumbfounded. These 3 are all peerless geniuses. Oh my god, aren't they from the lower house? Someone who's 4 stars above their level is too ashamed to meet them. Excuse me. I want to be alone. Someone who's 4 stars above their level is considered a super genius in our school. We can't wait to hold them in our palms and spend a lot of resources to nurture them. In the end, in the demonic academy, someone who's 4 stars above their level is too ashamed to meet others. This is too exaggerated. Is this a conversation between peerless geniuses? Can't they care about the feelings of ordinary people like us? I don't want to cultivate anymore. Anyway, I can't compare to them even if I work myself to death. He Xing and the others were mentally prepared. After all, they had seen the performance of these 3 people in the underworld. However, when the results came out, they were still shocked. What kind of monsters were these? How many more of these monsters were there in the demonic academy? Were they really students from the lower house? However, when He Xing's eyes fell on Lu Chen, he was relieved. After all, like the president, like the students. After seeing the performance of these 3 students, who would dare to say that the demonic academy was not good? Even the people from Immortal Academy had to look at the demonic academy in a new light. President, aren't you going to take the test? Xiao Zhan was humiliated by his companions, but he was powerless to fight back. He could only divert everyone's attention. Sure enough, everyone's eyes were focused on Lu Qin. Your body is weak. Just a few punches will do, Xiao Zhan said. He Xing also walked over and said to Lu Qin, nameless brother, even though Yi Fan and the others' performance is amazing, if you want to dispel everyone's doubts, you might have to do it yourself. Of course. Actually, I also want to see brother nameless results. I'm not doubting your strength, nameless brother. I'm just curious. Lu Qin smiled at He Xing. Actually, I also want to try it myself. However, cough cough, Senior He Xing, I want to ask, how much is this testing stone? You can't buy it with spirit stones. It's a special material that we found by chance when we were mining in the Green Pond continent. It was forged by a craftsman, He Xing replied. Oh, I see. If you can't buy it, then I won't take the test. Lu Qin said hesitantly. Nameless brother, could it be that you're afraid of damaging the testing stone? He Xing smiled. Nameless brother, don't worry. This testing stone has the ability to repair itself. Occasionally, it will repair itself. Moreover, its upper limit is very high. Chapter 1040. Someone next to him whispered. Disciple is very strong, but Nameless doesn't dare to take the test himself. Could it be that he's afraid? Don't forget that he's only a 7-star cultivator. No matter how much he can surpass, he won't be able to pass the test in terms of combat strength. Well, if his combat strength is not as good as Disciple's, wouldn't he be laughed at? He Xing looked at Lu Qin, leaned over to Lu Chen's side, and whispered, Nameless brother, the management of our Qingzi continent is based on division. Because of this, we pay more attention to the strong. Sometimes, you have to show your strength to convince everyone. Or, what kind of test are you good at? Tell me and I'll arrange it. Since He Xing had already said this, Lu Qin could only bite the bullet. Okay, then I'll take the test. As soon as he said this, everyone's eyes were focused on Lu Qin. That guy was finally willing to take the test himself. Yi Fan and the other two were also nervous. At present, the body testing stone was the closest test to actual combat strength. They didn't know how good the Dean's results would be. He Xing personally led the way. Lu Qin walked to the body testing stone under the gaze of the 8 pavilion masters of the celestial fortress of the Qingzi continent, the representatives of the major academies, and the outstanding disciples. Nameless brother, do your best. He Xing looked at Lu Qin encouragingly. Although Lu Qin was not in good condition now, he was different from Xiao Zhan and Yi Fan. The two of them were physically injured, but Lu Qin was just physically weak. It didn't have much impact on this test. Lu Qin thought for a moment. Since he wanted to take the test, he might as well take the test with his strength. Otherwise, there would be doubts. Celestial Demon Symbiosis. With a boom, Lu Qin's body erupted with violent spirit energy, setting off a gust of wind. His originally ordinary appearance instantly became exquisite as if it was carved by a knife. His black hair turned white, and his whole aura was completely different from before. God of War Possession. Demon Transformation. Place of Death. Dragon Blood Boiling. 3 Reincarnations. Demon Transformation. Celestial Demon Celestial Body. Emptiness of Gods and Demons Arm. Suddenly, Lu Chen's left arm swelled up. His originally normal arm instantly demonized, like the limb of a magical beast. That is, strengthening the body. He has an external strengthening of his flesh. When Immortal Academy's representative saw this scene, his eyes immediately widened, filled with horror. What kind of arm is that? I've never seen such an external strengthening of the body. The pavilion lord's eyes widened. Even when he saw the results of Yi Fan and the others, he wasn't so moved. However, Lu Qin hadn't even taken the test yet, and the emptiness of God's and demons' arm was already enough to make him lose his composure. Emptiness of God's and demons' arm. Could it be, the life-reversing set of gods and demons? The pavilion lord's brows furrowed as he stared at Lu Chen's left arm. At this moment, Yao He looked at the man in the field. Lu Chen had a head of white hair and snow-white skin. Even his eyebrows were white, and there was a pair of furry ears on his head. If one only saw Lu Chen like this, they could only sigh that this man was too handsome. However, this immortal-like elegant and handsome man actually had such a terrifying left arm. This kind of feeling was as if this guy had merged two extreme visual shocks into one. One was a god, one was a demon. Apart from the dual heavens might and soul body unification, Lu Chen activated all of his enhancement skills. He stood in the middle of the field, and with him as the center, strong winds blew in all directions. What a powerful aura! Why is this the spiritual energy of a 7-star cultivator? Is this his true strength? I seem to have sensed how powerful he is. At this moment, Lu Chen roared, "Void attack, annihilation of heaven and earth." Void attack, shattering the void. The combination of these two major skills was almost flawless. There was no gap at all, and the change was completed in an instant. After strengthening void attack, the skill launched by void attack could be converted into an area of effect attack. However, if it was not converted into an area of effect attack, the damage would increase by another 200%. Obviously, during the test, there was no need to use an area of effect attack. He only needed to pursue the maximum value of a single attack. With a loud bang, the two attacks were too fast, and one move was completed. After the collision of the two major skills, the entire strength testing stone shook violently. Even the ground of the training field shook violently. Everyone's face turned pale. Just now, just how terrifying was the destructive power of those two attacks. Oh my God, the foundation of the strength testing stone was almost shattered. I don't believe it, I don't believe it. He can't possibly be a 7-star cultivator. I don't believe it. No matter how chaotic the surrounding people were, Yi Fan, He Xing, Yao He, and the others did not seem to hear it. They were all staring at the result panel of the strength testing stone. Nameless, what was the result? This time, the waiting time was longer than any of the previous tests. The final result was still not out. What's going on? Why isn't the result out yet? He Xing looked at the strength testing stone in shock. He had never encountered such a situation before. Chuan He frowned. He walked quickly to the strength testing stone and looked around. When his hand touched the strength testing stone, suddenly, with a cracking sound, dozens of cracks appeared on the strength testing stone with Lu Chen's attack as the center. Oh my God! The strength testing stone cracked. It cracked. Lu Chen was also very nervous now. He withdrew his fist unnaturally and rolled his eyes. Fortunately, no one was paying attention to him now. Everyone was staring at the strength testing stone in shock. Suddenly, Yi Fan, who was standing next to Lu Chen, looked at the cracked strength testing stone and said faintly, "Dean, sigh. This should be very expensive." Chu Tian could not help but shake his head. Senior He Xing just said that this thing can't be bought at all. I'm afraid the Demonic Academy will have to bear a huge debt in the future. Xiao Zhan sighed. Dean, is it too late for us to run away now? Lu Chen was speechless. I told you not to test it. Why do you have to test it? Do you want me to use all my strength? We're friends with the World Edge Pavilion. They won't make us pay, Lu Chen said, pretending to be calm. Dean, are you sure? Xiao Zhan looked at Lu Chen. Didn't they say that brothers should settle accounts clearly? Lu Chen's forehead was sweating. Senior He Xing just said that this thing can repair itself. Lu Chen suppressed the uneasiness in his heart and finally remembered what He Xing just said. You guys can't stay calm. You only know how to be nervous. This thing has a strong self-healing ability. It can definitely repair this small injury. As soon as he finished speaking, the strength testing stone completely broke in the middle. The entire stone mountain was directly divided into two. Lu Chen's jaw almost dropped. What happened to self-healing? Why did it completely crack? He Xing is lying. With a boom, the gravel on the strength-testing stone fell and rolled in front of Lu Chen. Coincidentally, this stone was the one that showed the results. There was also a row of incomplete information on it. Rating, God Fiend, Dean, I think we should run. We can't afford this. Yi Fan said seriously. Chapter 1041. The people from the World Edge Pavilion were looking for other stones that could display the results. However, after the test stones cracked, they were all broken into pieces. The few pieces that they found could no longer display the results. He Xing saw that Lu Chen was leaving quietly with his 3 disciples. He grabbed Lu Chen and said, "Brother Nameless, please wait." Lu Chen sighed. He had been discovered. Nameless, you, Lu Chen shook his head. He was so angry. He quickly said, "Senior He Xing, let's be clear. I didn't plan to test it. If you didn't force me to test it, and if you didn't look at me with your encouraging eyes, I wouldn't have ended up like this." He Xing was stunned for a moment. Then, he hurriedly said, "Oh, why are you saying this now? Your attack just now broke the test stone." Lu Chen blinked. "Now, I believe that no one will doubt your strength anymore," He Xing said. Lu Chen said in surprise, "Senior He Xing, is this what you want to tell me?" "Of course. You don't want me to accompany you to the test stone?" He Xing turned around and looked at the rubble on the ground. "Sigh, although my heart aches, this is nothing compared to the underworld. We can just find another testing stone to replace it. After all, we still have 3 more that we can use." Lu Chen finally felt relieved. Celestial Fortress was indeed generous. They didn't care about hundreds of millions of assets at all. At this moment, the onlookers were completely stunned. Although Lu Chen's result was only 2 words, Divine Demon. There seemed to be a suffix behind it, but they couldn't find it anymore. However, the fact that he broke the test stone was more convincing than anything else. I didn't expect there to be a guy who can ignore levels. To be able to break the test stone, his combat strength must be at least above 3,000. His cultivation level is only at the Grand Cultivator realm. His combat strength must be even more terrifying. What is the final rating of Divine Demon? Is there a higher rating than Unparalleled? This is the first time I've heard of it. The 2 great Immortal Academy representatives walked up to Lu Chen. They cupped their fists towards Lu Chen and said, "Nameless Principal, we have offended you before, please forgive us." Lu Chen was in a good mood because he didn't have to pay any compensation. What's more, according to common sense, their suspicions were normal. He Xing had said that the 800 disciples of the World Edge Pavilion had been suppressed, and he had described how powerful the army of the dead was. In the end, they had been wiped out by a 7-star cultivator. It did not make sense. "It's fine." Lu Chen returned the courtesy. The pavilion masters of the Heavenly Sea Pavilion and the Heavenly Screen Pavilion also walked over. It seems like the Netherworld's ambitions have been revealed. We must take action and inform the headquarters of the various continents to discuss this matter together. Lu Chen heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that everyone was finally discussing the underworld invasion seriously. At this moment, Xiao Zhan ran over and said, "Principal, come and test this. The element testing stone is quite accurate." He Xing's expression changed when he heard that. He hurriedly stopped Lu Chen and said, "Nameless brother, you're not feeling well, and I think you're tired. You should go back and rest. Chuan He, take Nameless brother back to rest." Chuan He. Lu Chen originally wanted to give it a try, but he was half pulled and half invited by Chuanhe to send him away. He Xing only heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Lu Chen being dragged away. Good heavens, if another testing stone was destroyed, then his heart would really ache to death. Junior brother He Xing will discuss how to deal with this within the celestial fortress. The other pavilion masters woke He Xing up, and he returned to the meeting hall with everyone. Lu Chen and the disciples returned to their residence. The celestial fortress needed to determine the overall strategy before discussing it with the other academies. In the Green Fin continent, one pavilion could not control the overall situation. However, if the celestial fortress was united, they would still have a strong leadership. Lu Chen had consumed a lot of energy during this test. Lu Yi was patiently brewing medicine for Lu Chen. Seeing how busy Lu Yi was, Lu Chen suddenly thought of the underworld's flower. The underworld's flower was in the hands of the king of hell, and Li Wei was in the king of hell's palace. This meant that a battle between him and the king of hell was inevitable. Although Lu Chen did not know the strength of the king of hell, he was able to unify the underworld. There was no need to think about how strong that guy was. If I can solve the problem of my stamina, I might be able to fight. However, after being strengthened by the underworld's core, my fatigue has an obvious negative effect. The Flame Spirit Core's 30 seconds of fatigue is far from enough to support me in a battle with the King of Hell. Thinking of this, Lu Chen could not help but think of the planet Crystal Core. If even the underworld had its own planet Crystal Core, then what about the other continents? Did the Xingyuan continent, the Greenfin continent, and the other continents have their own planet crystal cores? If so, where could he find them? Although Rhubarb could search for treasures, he should not be able to find the hidden treasures. Just as Lu Chen was worrying about this matter, Chuanhe came over to deliver the herbs. Miss Lu, these are the herbs you asked me to find. They are all here. Chuanhe handed the herbs to Lu Yi. Thank you. Lu Yi said, about that, I'm really sorry. We can't take out anything decent to exchange. What are you talking about, Miss Lu? Not to mention that these herbs are not very precious. Even if they are rare, the Nameless Dean saved 800 people of the World Edge Pavilion. This time, he made a move to support the Pavilion Master. It's reasonable for us to provide these herbs. Since Chuanhe said so, Lu Yi did not decline. She took the herbs and went to refine medicine. Chuanhe walked to Lu Chen's room. Mr. Nameless, are you used to living here? It's very good here. Brother Chuanhe, please take a seat. Chuanhe walked over and sat beside Lu Chen. Mr. Nameless, I heard that Miss Lu has long become a savior alchemist, but she has been unable to break through. Lu Chen was still thinking about something, but when he heard Chuanhe mention this, he looked at Chuanhe in surprise. That's true. It's said that alchemists are the most difficult to break through to become immortal alchemists. They need opportunities. Chuanhe nodded. That's true. Alchemists and blacksmiths are known as the 9th and 10th most important professions. These two life skills are also the most difficult to break through. However, I've been following the Pavilion Master to various continents for many years. I was fortunate enough to meet 2 immortal alchemists. Because I also learned alchemy, I asked them how to break through. Lu Chen's eyes widened. Oh. What did they say? Chuanhe said, to break through to immortal alchemists, you first need a top-grade immortal pill formula. It must be a top-grade immortal pill with a success rate of less than 1 in 1,000. Then, you need to refine a divine pattern pill. Using this method, the chances of breaking through will be higher. Lu Chen immediately called Lu Yi over and told Lu Yi about this. You need to refine a divine pattern pill. Lu Yi's eyes widened. Chapter 1042. Chuanhe nodded. That's right. It said that the divine pattern pill can only be made by an immortal pharmacist. If you can make the divine pattern pill, it means that you have reached the level of an immortal pharmacist and have a high chance of breaking through. Lu Chen was confused. What's the divine pattern pill? Lu Yi explained, boss, pills can be divided into 9 grades according to their quality. However, it said that there's an even higher grade above the 9 grades, which is the divine pattern. The so-called divine inscriptions refer to the inextinguishable pill tribulation that forms natural patterns when the pill is formed. These patterns are like paths and are also called the heavenly divine pattern. Just by hearing the description of the divine pattern pill, Lu Chen felt that it had nothing to do with him. It was better to leave it to Lu Yi. If Miss Lu needs it, we have 2 pill recipes that meet the requirements. However, we can only gather 4 or 5 sets of ingredients. Chuanhe said. Logically speaking, Lu Yi should be very interested in the pill recipes. However, Lu Yi directly rejected him. Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Chuanhe. However, I believe that boss will help me get the pill recipes. Chuanhe didn't say anything and smiled. That's true. It's Chuanhe's fault. Then, it's getting late. I'll go back first. If you need anything, you can ask the disciples outside to call me. After sending Chuanhe off, Lu Chen turned around and looked at Lu Yi strangely. Little Green, you don't want his pill recipes? Lu Yi smiled. Although the people from the World's Edge Pavilion seem nice, they suddenly came over to curry favor with you. It seems that they want to rope you in. I don't want boss to be controlled by others just to help me break through. Lu Chen smiled and shook his head. This woman was very meticulous. Besides, boss, you'll definitely help me get the pill recipes, right? Lu Chen rubbed Lu Yi's long hair. Of course. Later on, Yi Fan, Ronger, and the others were invited to discuss the Tao with the disciples of the World Edge Pavilion. In other words, they were sparring games. Yao He followed along, and Lu Chen did not join in the fun. Not long after, the 8 pavilion masters of the Celestial Immortal Pavilion came looking for him. Brother Nameless, we've already prepared a few measures. We'd like to hear your opinion. If you think they're feasible, we'll let the academies take action, He Xing said. First of all, we have to investigate all the entrances to the underworld within the Azure Fan continent. After that, we have to dispatch a large number of troops to guard them, set up a formation, and closely monitor them. Secondly, organize the various academies of the Azure Fan continent and prepare for battle. In addition, we will send a few small teams to enter the Netherworld realm to gather information. Don't we have a few captives? We plan to start from them. Lastly, we have already applied to hold a meeting at the headquarters to make this matter public. We will discuss countermeasures together before deciding on the next step. Brother Nameless, what else do you think needs to be added? Lu Chen said, that's all we can do for now. By the way, has Xinyuan continent been notified? Brother Nameless, don't worry. Zhongxian Gu has already replied. They will arrive in 3 days. From their mouths, they seem to already know about this matter and are anxious to contact us. Lu Chen nodded. Regardless of whether Zhongxian Gu was worried about him or not, they would not be careless about this matter. Oh, by the way, Brother Nameless, when we were interrogating Kumu and the others today, White Demon told us when the Eternal Soul Palace will open, as well as when the army of the dead might attack. Oh. What did he say? He said that the Eternal Soul Palace is already opening, and we can't stop it at all. Once the Eternal Soul Palace opens, the Netherworld realm will attack after it's reorganized. Lu Chen frowned. So soon? Amen. The Pavilion Master said. We have already sent a suicide squad to the army of the dead to verify the information. Once it's confirmed, we will have no more than 4 months. 4 months. Just preparing for war on one continent was already very stressful, not to mention that there were so many continents in the 6th heaven. Time was very tight. Also, he said something about Lady Li Wei. Lu Chen suddenly raised his head. He said that Li Wei is of the heavenly fox race and has a special physique. Moreover, her realm is very high. When the time comes, she will be made into a living yang bag, he also said. Lu Chen's eyes widened as he said anxiously, what else did he say? He is trying to provoke you. He wants you to save her. When the time comes, the 4 ghost kings will easily kill you. Lu Chen narrowed his eyes. Li Wei. He Xing saw that Lu Chen was agitated and hurriedly said, Brother Nameless, don't worry. The suicide squad will also investigate Li Wei's situation. If what White Demon said is true, then Lady Li Wei's life is not in danger for now. That's right. Brother Nameless, I suspect that they will deliberately use Lady Li Wei as bait to lure you to save her. The Eternal Soul Palace has already opened, and the 4 ghost kings have returned. The Netherworld realm cannot act recklessly at this time. Lu Chen also understood this possibility, but when he thought of Li Wei falling into the army of the dead's hands, Lu Chen felt like a knife was being twisted in his heart. Suddenly, Lu Chen raised his head and looked at everyone. Excuse me, do you know of any extremely dangerous places in the Azure Fan continent? Extremely dangerous places? They looked at each other. Brother Nameless, if it's an extremely dangerous place, then it's naturally extremely dangerous. Isn't it a bit inappropriate to take the risk and explore now? I must save Li Wei as soon as possible. Lu Chen said with certainty. If you know, please tell Nameless. This. The few of them hesitated for a moment. Finally, the pavilion master of the Sky Vale Pavilion said, since Brother John Doe has already decided, then, there are 2 extremely dangerous places in the Qingzhe mainland that almost no one has explored. One is located in the depths of the mountains in the north. It's called the Blood Cave. It's said that there are 10,000-year-old blood essences in the Blood Cave. Once you get close, your blood essence will be sucked dry. The other is in the extreme cold of the South Pole. We don't know what exactly is there, but it's close to the South Pole. It's bone-piercing cold. Even the 7 or 8-star Theo the Great would find it hard to bear. The closer to the center, the colder it gets. Lu Chen frowned. He didn't have time to explore all the areas. It would be best if he could find the planet crystal in one go. Of these 2 places, the Blood Cave had 10,000-year-old blood essences. Regardless of whether it was true or not, there was a certain probability that someone had seen demonic creatures in the Blood Cave. However, no one knew what was in the extreme cold of the South Pole. In comparison, it was obvious that the South Pole was more likely to have a planet crystal. If there's no planet crystal in the extreme cold, then I'll go to the Blood Cave. Lu Chen had already decided to go to the extreme cold of the South Pole first. Later, Yi Fan and the others returned. Lu Chen called Yi Fan and the others into the house. In 2 days, the people from Zhongxiangu will come to the Azure Fan continent. You guys will follow them back to the Demonic Academy. What about you, Dean? Xiao Zhan asked immediately. I want to go somewhere else. I must save Li Wei. Dean, you need someone to take care of you. We'll go with you. Chu Tian said. Lu Chen shook his head. From the information we've received so far, I predict that it'll be very difficult to completely stop the army of the dead's invasion. The Cliff of Reflection in the Demonic Academy has a passage to the underworld. You guys must go back and help guard the academy. Once the war breaks out, I'll rush back as soon as possible. You guys must let the academy's disciples cultivate harder and help Old High and Old E set up defenses. Chapter 1043. After settling down Yi Fan and the others, Lu Chen set off for the Antarctic. Although the Green Fan continent was fragmented, the sea was still relatively safe. It was said that the Celestial Fortress had once organized a sea purge to eliminate all the powerful magical beasts in the sea. There were many commercial ships between the various scattered continents. If Lu Chen didn't need a mount, he could just take a merchant ship. There should be some super strong people in the celestial fortress who haven't shown themselves. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to purge the sea. Lu Chen thought. He paid 2,000 spirit stones and boarded a ship to the Antarctic. He could use the time on the ship to recover his strength and merge with his soul for a while. There were more than 200 people on the ship. They were all outer disciples of the Dark North Academy. Some were doing school missions, while others were working to earn money. Their ranks weren't too high. Most of them were at the Earth cultivation realm. Lu Chen's rank aroused everyone's interest. Many people pointed at him, but Lu Chen didn't care. As the ship moved, Lu Chen found something interesting. The ship's manufacturer was the Daddy's Bounty Group. This name was really a bit strange. On the night they boarded the ship, the crew caught a ghost-head fish. Lu Chen happened to know how to cook, so he helped the crew cook a big meal. The crew was used to the half-hearted meals on the ship. When they suddenly had such a big meal, they immediately put down their previous indifference and crazily fought over it. Lu Chen smiled. No need to fight over it. There's still some time before we reach the Antarctic. If you catch any fish, I can cook it for you. I don't have anything to do anyway. Wow, it's too fresh. This superb cooking coupled with the freshness of the ghost-head fish is simply the best in the world. Nameless brother, how many stars are you a master chef? 9 stars, Lu Chen said truthfully. No wonder your cultivation realm isn't high. So you're focused on cooking. That's great. We're in for a treat. Lu Chen smiled and didn't explain further. Perhaps being a chef in the Jiutian wasn't bad. In these 7 or 8 days, Lu Chen helped cook and the crew quickly became familiar with him. Unknowingly, the ship had already sailed into the Antarctic Sea and was not far from the Antarctic continent. At night, the wind was calm and the waves were calm. The starry sky was dotted with stars, and some snow-covered islands could be seen in the distance. Listening to the sound of the waves and looking up at the vast and clear starry sky, this scene could not help but make one feel relaxed and happy. Lu Chen was chatting with some of the crew members on the deck. Nameless brother, you went to the South Pole to hunt the ice bear monster, right? That thing's fur is indeed a good material for making armor. Many academies are buying the ice bear's fur. But that thing's defense is very high. With your level, don't force yourself to be bigger. Actually, if you don't have anywhere to go, you can stay on the ship. With your craftsmanship, many academies would fight over you. Lu Chen was not going to hunt the ice bear, but he still smiled and said, I'm used to being free, and I don't like to stay in one place. If not for the fact that he was the dean, he would probably still be drifting outside. We'll be arriving at the South Pole tomorrow. We'll be fishing in the nearby waters. Unfortunately, we won't be able to eat the shadow shark's fin made by Nameless brother. Oh right, I have a map of the South Pole here. Remember, don't enter this area. The ship's first mate took out a map, opened it, and circled an area with his hand. This is an extremely cold place. It's very dangerous. Just the low temperature there is enough to freeze Theo the Great to death. The academy instructors told us not to go near it. Lu Chen glanced at the map. There was an area circled in red. The place they couldn't go happened to be the place Lu Chen wanted to go. Thank you, brother. Lu Chen put away the map. No problem, it's just a map. If you have time in the future, come to our Dark North Academy. We'll treat you well. The next afternoon, the ship docked specially for Lu Chen. Everyone watched as Lu Chen disembarked, then returned to the designated area to fish. As soon as he disembarked, Lu Chen felt the bone-piercing cold. Lu Chen opened the map and headed straight for the South Pole. After who knew how long, low growls began to sound in the surroundings. Due to the strong wind, it was impossible to determine where the sound came from. An ice bear? Lu Chen quickly found a rock mass to hide in. Not long after, Lu Chen saw a huge bear monster wandering in the vicinity from a crack in the stone. The bear only had one eye on its head, but there were 3 tufts of bright golden hair on its forehead. It seemed to be a rank 3 advanced exotic beast. Damn, we haven't even entered the South Pole, and we're already encountering a rank 3 advanced exotic beast. Lu Chen couldn't help but be shocked. The bear seemed to have discovered something and refused to leave. In the end, it simply lay down on a huge rock to rest. Lu Chen shook his head. He had already spent several days on this trip, and he wasn't sure if there were any planet crystal cores here. He couldn't keep hiding here and waste time, right? No, I have to charge out. Just as Lu Chen was about to make his move, the bear suddenly sensed something and got up. Not far away, a beautiful figure appeared in his sight. Lu Chen focused his eyes and jumped in fright. Yao He. The newcomer was Fenglai Academy's Yao He. Lu Chen really couldn't imagine why he would meet her here. Yao He had already been discovered by the ice bear. A rank 3 advanced exotic beast was already very strong, and the 2 sides immediately engaged in a fierce battle. Lu Chen originally planned to help, but to Lu Chen's surprise, Yao He was actually very strong. She killed the ice bear in a dozen minutes. No way, Yao He is also so strong. In Lu Chen's impression, the strength of many academies' deans and vice-deans was only 5 or 6 stars of Theo the Great. However, Fenglai Academy was very strange. Li Wei was a 1-star human king, and Yao He's strength was probably 8 or 9 stars of Theo the Great. Speaking of which, Fenglai Academy wasn't very famous before, but it had risen in recent years and was about to enter the top 10 academies of Xinyuan continent. Moreover, Li Wei had previously said that Fenglai Academy wasn't afraid of the Violet Heavenly Palace. All these signs made Lu Chen realize that he might have to re-evaluate Fenglai's strength. Yao He took the beast core and cut off the ice bear's skin. Then, she walked to the rock where Lu Chen was hiding. Finished watching the show? You can come out now. Lu Chen sucked in a breath of cold air. This woman had already discovered him. He climbed out of the rock, looked at Yao He, and laughed awkwardly. Dean Yao He's strength is indeed extraordinary. But why are you here? Yao He rolled her eyes at Lu Chen. You ran away before Sister Li Wei was rescued. Naturally, I wanted to see what you were going to do. After all, there are many vile people who say one thing and mean another. If you are such a person, then I will go and rescue Sister Li Wei myself. Lu Chen understood that Yao He had run over to spy on him. Speaking of Li Wei, Lu Chen stopped joking. I will definitely save Li Wei, but I must find a way to relieve my weak physique. Otherwise, my chances of success are not high. Yao He sized up Lu Chen. Seeing that Lu Chen didn't seem to be joking, she finally sighed. Having experienced the battle of the underworld with Lu Chen, this person's character could already be somewhat discerned. Your situation should be caused by forcibly increasing your strength when your physical body is insufficient. To relieve this effect, you must quickly increase the attributes of your physical body. I heard that you are looking for an extremely dangerous place. Fine, I will go with you. Chapter 1044. Now that the mysterious ice bear was dead, Lu Chen and Yao He went straight to the land of extreme cold. As soon as they entered the land of extreme cold, Yao He was affected by the extremely low temperature. Her body trembled slightly as she hugged herself and curled into a ball. Hey, aren't you cold? Yao He shivered and looked at Lu Chen in astonishment. She thought for a moment and said, "Oh right, your fire element is high." Lu Chen looked at the sky and then at Luo Yao, who was frozen like a dog. He shook his head and said, "It's late now and the wind is strong. Let's find a place to hide from the wind first." The two of them hid behind a few rocks and made a bonfire to set up camp. What's your relationship with Li Wei? Lu Chen suddenly asked. Luo Yao's behavior didn't seem like they were ordinary friends. She's my sister. Your sister. Lu Chen looked at the top of Yao He's head. Don't look, I'm not from the fox race. Yao He knew what Lu Chen was looking at and took the initiative to say, only the pure-blooded heavenly fox clan will have a humanoid form with ears. My mother is only from the fox clan of the demon clan, not the heavenly fox clan, so I only have ears when I revert to my original form of a fox. Lu Chen frowned slightly. You have the same father but different mothers? Yao He nodded. Yes, but Li Wei has lived with us since she was young. We have the same father but different mothers, so our relationship is no different from that of other sisters. Lu Chen finally understood why Yao He worked so hard. Li Wei was her sister. What's the difference between a heavenly fox and an ordinary fox? Heavenly foxes were created by Mother Earth, so they are naturally different from us. Let's put it this way, before the yin and yang intercourse, the heavenly fox's body has a strong spirit-gathering ability. Although I also have a part of this ability, so my strength is not weak, but in the end, compared to my sister, I am still far behind. Yao He fiddled with the branches and threw them into the bonfire. It is also because of this that the Netherworld army did not kill her. After all, Yang Qi is also a kind of spiritual energy. Li Wei is very useful to them. However, to forcibly extract the spiritual energy from her body, one would have to extract her life and soul consciousness as well. At that time, my sister would become a walking corpse. Perhaps this is what they want to see. A vessel without consciousness should be more convenient to use. Lu Chen frowned. Thinking of Li Wei becoming like that, he felt a burst of guilt. I won't let that happen. Lu Chen said with certainty. Yao He, wait for me here tomorrow. I'm afraid you won't be able to hold on if we go any further. No. I want to follow you. Until you saved Li Wei. I can't enter the land of extreme cold. Carry me in. Lu Chen froze for a moment. What did Yao He say? Carry her inside. Was it so direct? Although Yao He only had half of the heavenly fox bloodline, the other half was also from the demon fox clan. Although she was the vice president, she didn't look very old. Compared to Li Wei, her appearance was slightly inferior. However, she was still a great beauty. Moreover, she was a bit more enchanting. Looking at her for a moment, people couldn't help but be fascinated. Was something going to happen when he was alone with a fox spirit in the wilderness? Coincidentally, the little beast wasn't here. You, what are you thinking? What I mean is, I'll transform into my original form and you carry me in. Unexpectedly, Yao He lowered her head and said shyly, don't think about anything else. If I lose my virginity, the heavenly fox bloodline spiritual energy gathering effect will disappear. Damn, he was seen through and rejected at the same time. Lu Chen hurriedly said, hey, what are you talking about? I wasn't thinking about anything. Transform into your original form, right? That's what I meant. After resting for the night, Lu Chen tossed and turned restlessly. He had been in Jiutian for so long. Even Louis had found a boyfriend, but he was still single. Speaking of which, he was definitely not the kind of person who wouldn't have any reaction when a beauty was placed in front of him. Why was he still single? Sigh. His luck was not on his side. The next day, the sun rose very early. Lu Chen was preparing to set off. Yao He transformed into a snow-white little fox and jumped onto Lu Chen's arm. Lu Chen patted the little fox's head. Was this Yao He's original form? It was a little white fox. He put Yao He into his clothes and the little white fox's fluffy head poked out from his collar. This way, you won't feel cold. Let's go. Lu Chen patted the little fox's head and walked into the depths of the Arctic land. The cold wind became more and more piercing. The strong wind made it difficult to walk. It was hard to imagine that there was a low temperature that even Theo the Great couldn't withstand. Lu Chen had to use a small amount of spiritual energy to circulate his fire spirit core to provide his body with a large amount of heat. This place is desolate and there are no ice bears. Lu Chen comforted himself. After walking against the wind for a few hours, Lu Chen suddenly found a huge circular pit in front of him. The diameter of the pit was probably a few thousand meters. A fierce cold wind rushed out of the hole, and even Lu Chen felt a burst of bone-piercing cold. Standing in front of the cave and looking at the bottomless pit, Lu Chen gritted his teeth and jumped down. As soon as he jumped into the pit, Lu Chen was directly blown up by the strong wind and fell dozens of meters away. Damn! What the hell? In other places, the abyss is like a black hole that eats people. This pit keeps spitting out and I can't go in. Lu Chen got up and returned to the pit. Inside, a gale was raging. The wind was extremely strong and kept blowing outwards. The more he couldn't go in, the more Lu Chen looked forward to it. This meant that there must be something unusual in here. After that, Lu Chen tried a few more times. However, the wind was too strong. Lu Chen could only go 40 to 50 meters down before he was thrown out by the wind. Damn, how do I go in? Lu Chen frowned. There were still many areas in the Arctic lands that had not been explored. This was not the central area. Lu Chen could only mark this place and then continue to go deeper into the Arctic lands. After walking for another 2 to 3 hours, Lu Chen found another huge pit like the previous one. The pit kept spitting out strong wind and cold air. It was impossible to enter. Lu Chen recorded the location of the second pit and continued on his way. After Lu Chen had traveled all over the extremely cold land, he found a total of 7 such huge circular craters. During a short rest, Lu Chen took out the map to check the locations of the 7 pits. Could it be the mirror image 7 elements in one? Yao he suddenly said. Mirror image 7 elements in one. Can you break it? It can't be broken. This is a natural array. It uses the power of nature to form a natural array over the years. Before ascending, cultivators can't compete with nature. Lu Chen asked, just now you said the mirror image 7 elements in one. What does this mean? Are we in an illusion? It's a profound technique of illusion. Yao he said, the purpose is to prevent people from breaking the array. For example, an ordinary array is a maze drawn on top. No matter how difficult it is, you can always find the exit. However, the mirror image array. You can understand it as the other party turning the maze over. You can see the array core through this side, but you can't really touch it. The result is that you can't break it. You can see that the pit is spitting out spiritual qi. You can understand it as the 7 array cores absorbing spiritual qi. However, because it's a mirror image, the effect is the opposite. It wants to spew out spiritual qi. Lu Chen also seemed to understand, but in general, they couldn't enter the pit now. Chapter 1045. Damn it, I don't have much time left. Lu Chen angrily said, what kind of damn array is this? Array talisman masters sometimes really make people gnash their teeth in hatred. Ordinary array talisman masters can't make this kind of mirror array. Yao he said, as far as I know, 7 elements returned to one needs to use a huge amount of energy. Every array core is most likely connected to other planets, borrowing the energy from other planets' large-scale spirit veins. Connected to other planets' large-scale spirit veins? Lu Chen suddenly said in shock. Obviously, the planet's crystal core itself is also a large-scale spirit vein. This 7 elements returned to one is a mirror array that constantly spews out extreme cold air. Then Lu Chen deduced that perhaps the real source of 7 elements returned to one spiritual energy is the fire element's spiritual energy. Then the spiritual energy source that provides the array's operation is more likely to come from the planet's core. If he can directly connect to the planet's core, then 7 elements returned to 1 would be a huge opportunity for him. Yao He, is there any way to break this array? Do you have to enter here? Yao He asked. The person who arranged this array obviously doesn't want anyone to enter. You might even provoke some huge force. Moreover, 7 elements returned to 1. 7 channels are connected to the other side, you don't even know what kind of danger there is. No matter what kind of force, what kind of danger, I have to go in. Lu Chen said with certainty, I have to save Li Wei. Speaking of her sister, Yao He finally stopped insisting. Okay, I will help you. You let me out first, and help me resist the cold air around here. Lu Chen pinched the fur on the back of the fox's neck and pulled her out from his embrace. Yao He shook her body and turned back into her human form, but her expression was somewhat awkward. Lu Chen was still pinching her neck. Can you not pinch my neck in the future? Yao He shyly stared at Lu Chen. Ah. Lu Chen quickly retracted his hand and awkwardly said, sorry, then, let's begin. Lu Chen hurriedly activated Divine Demon Symbiosis, changing the attribute of his spirit core to pure fire element and releasing spirit chi. Lu Chen's flames came from the core of the underworld. Their temperature was extremely high, and they were not extinguished by the extreme cold around them. Gradually, the surrounding temperature began to rise. To break the 7 elements return to 1, the key is to find the hidden main formation eye. Yao He sat down cross-legged and took out a silver bracelet. She forced out a mouthful of blood and spat it on the bracelet. The bracelet glowed faintly. My heavenly fox bloodline is not pure, so I can't ask for directions directly like my sister, Yao He said. I don't know if I can succeed, but I can only try now. Heavenly Fox asks for directions. In an instant, the entire ground began to rumble. Not too far away, the thick snow began to collapse. The 10,000-year-old layer of ice on the ground began to violently shake and cracks began to appear. Lu Chen's eyes widened. The celestial fox asking directions actually caused a change in the Earth's crust. The Heavenly Fox clan was created by Mother Earth, and they were indeed extraordinary. The bracelet in Yao He's hand floated in the air. The opening of the bracelet opened and curved on its own, forming the shape of a fine needle. It spun rapidly like the tip of a compass. The tremors on the ground continued, and Yao He's expression became more and more difficult. However, the silver needle did not stop. Yao He stared at the silver needle. Suddenly, she struck her own chest with a palm of her divine hand. Yao He! Lu Chen cried out in astonishment. Yao He spat out a mouthful of blood onto the silver needle. Don't come over, I'm fine. My bloodline is still too mixed. I need to use more Heavenly Fox blood. Lu Chen suddenly thought that the reason why Li Wei was able to find Wuxia and Skyfall was because she had also used the Heavenly Fox asks for directions. The spinning speed of the silver needle slowed down, and Yao He struck her chest again. Even though Lu Chen wanted to stop her, there was nothing he could do. She spat out another mouthful of blood. The silver needle was already dyed red, and it finally stopped. After a moment, the silver needle pointed in a certain direction. Nameless. The main formation is over there, 1,200 meters away. That's the only entrance. After Yao He finished speaking, she was already exhausted. She returned to her fox form and fainted. Lu Chen put away the silver needle and put Yao He back into his clothes, leaving her head outside. Then, Lu Chen looked at the direction the silver needle had pointed at. It was a spacious area, and there were no deep pits. What can be seen isn't the entrance, what can't be seen is. Lu Chen shook his head and walked in that direction. When Lu Chen stood at the so-called entrance area, he realized that there was no difference between this place and the surroundings. Even when he opened his heaven's eyes, he couldn't see any changes in spiritual energy. If it wasn't for the markings of the heavenly fox, he probably wouldn't be able to find it. Lu Chen looked at the layer of ice under his feet and frowned. Let's try breaking through here. Emptiness of gods and demons arm. Void attack, shatter the void. With a bang, the layer of ice under Lu Chen's feet cracked. After a moment, the layer of ice directly broke, and Lu Chen fell down with a large amount of broken ice. After falling for at least a few thousand meters, Lu Chen saw a red light below. He spread his wings to control his body. The underground was actually a flat and spacious area. It was only because of the flowing lava in the distance that this area was illuminated. With the help of the underground light, Lu Chen found that there were 7 light pillars around this flat area. The positions of the light pillars corresponded to the deep pits he marked on the map. Yao He had already awakened from the tremor just now. This is the main body of the 7 elements in one. Entering the light pillar should be able to teleport to the corresponding spiritual source of the 7 elements light pillar. Lu Chen nodded. He looked at the 7 light pillars. The energy emitted from the main body was extremely hot. It was indeed a fire attribute spiritual source. It was very likely that the core of the planet was used as the spiritual source. Who set up the 7 elements in one, and what is the purpose of setting up this array? Yao He said, not only did they set up an extremely advanced 7 elements in one, but they also used a mirror array to hide this array. You should know that even if you know the 7 elements in one, it is very difficult to break the array. The 7 elements in one's characteristic is that the spiritual source of the array is extremely strong. It is very difficult to break the array if one is not strong enough. I think it might be to protect something extremely precious. This is just my guess. I can't be sure if the 7 elements in one is not broken. Lu Chen nodded. This array had existed for many years. The Qingze continent could clear the sea, but no one dared to approach the extremely cold place. It was clear that this array was indeed powerful. Nameless. I just used up the heavenly fox blood essence and can't recover in a short time. I will be a burden if you bring me along. I will leave the rest to you. Lu Chen nodded. He didn't know if the place he was going to was good or bad. He didn't even know if he could come back alive. Okay. Lu Chen released Yao He, you wait here for me to come back. After saying that, Lu Chen walked to the northernmost light pillar and stepped in. The light pillar was not a transmission door. Its transmission method was also different from a transmission door. After entering the light pillar, Lu Chen felt that his body was about to be torn apart. Fortunately, he held on for a moment. Through the light pillar, Lu Chen found that the scene in front of him had changed. He hurriedly rushed out of the light pillar. At this time, a few hundred meters away from Lu Chen, a huge fireball was slowly rotating above the magma lake. Upon seeing this fireball, Lu Chen couldn't help but laugh, haha, I finally found another one. Chapter 1046. Lu Chen was definitely experienced in absorbing the spiritual power of a planet's crystal core. The temperature isn't as high as the netherworld's core. Lu Chen felt a bit regretful. This meant that the strength of this planet's crystal core was far inferior to that of the netherworld's. But what surprised Lu Chen was that when he inadvertently looked up, he suddenly discovered that several hundred meters above him, several hundred people were craning their necks to look at him. Several hundred meters above him, there was another level, where several hundred people were also looking down. There's someone else. Lu Chen was dumbfounded. Is this an underground city? He heard the people above shout, not good, someone fell down. Hurry and save him. As they spoke, several old men wrapped in icy spiritual power moved at the same time, quickly creating an icy tunnel. The tunnel had 2 ends, one beside them and the other in front of Lu Chen. Kid, hurry and go in. Quick. A few old men on top of the platform cried out, looking very anxious. Lu Chen looked at the icy tunnel in front of him. Why did he have to go in? He'd finally found a planet's core with great difficulty, but the voices of the people above were already hoarse from shouting. They felt that there must be some terrifying danger. After thinking about it, Lu Chen still stepped into the tunnel. Not long after, Lu Chen arrived and exited from the other side. Only now did he see clearly that there were about 1,000 people on this level, and many of them were looking at him. The old men were also sizing up Lu Chen, and when they saw Lu Chen's badge, they were even more astonished. 7-star Field Great Cultivator. What the hell? You're not the winner of this year's competition. A man in his 40s had a look of astonishment on his face. Lu Chen was dumbfounded. What winner of the competition? I'm not. What's the winner of the competition? Lu Chen asked, baffled. The competition is a school competition held by our Songyuan continent. It's held once every 3 years. Don't tell me you don't even know this. In the competition, only the top 1,000 can go to the lowest level of the planet's core to cultivate the fire element. Those ranked within 5,000 and below 1,000 can cultivate on the next level. Lu Chen looked at the disciples in shock. Were these people the well-known figures of the Songyuan continent's genius convention? Speaking of which, since the star core was also a type of spirit vein, it made sense that the disciples with outstanding results in the genius competition would have the opportunity to cultivate in the spirit vein. I fell down. Lu Chen held back for a long time, but he really couldn't find an excuse. Fall down. Brat, you must have snuck in. An old man scrutinized Lu Chen. How dare you trespass into the holy land of fire? If we hadn't discovered you in time, I'm afraid you would have been burned to death by the earth fire. Elderly, how should we deal with this person? The others looked at the old man. I think we should bring him back to the Fantasy Immortal Pavilion and punish him severely. The old man didn't immediately speak. He was still sizing up Lu Chen. A 7-star Field Great Cultivator. His level is so low that it makes one's hair stand on end. He doesn't belong to any school, but he can stay down there for a few minutes and talk to us normally at the lowest level of the holy land of fire. Brat, what is your fire element affinity? Elder, a 7-star Great Cultivator isn't that low. Lu Chen couldn't help but defend himself. He had worked hard to reach this level, so how could it be so low that it makes one's hair stand on end? A female disciple watching the show couldn't help but laugh. We have more than a 7-star Great Cultivator moving bricks here. Lu Chen sighed. It seemed that if he continued to explain, he would be laughed at again. Brat, no matter what your level is, tell me what is your fire element affinity? Is it 1,500? The old man seemed to be particularly concerned about Lu Chen's fire element affinity. The disciples next to him immediately widened their eyes. Immortal Master Li thought too highly of this guy. How could it be 1,500? I've already come to the Holy Land of Fire 4 times, and it's only 900. I've been in the top 10 of the Genius competition 10 times in a row, and it's only over 1,200. How could he have 1,500? Above 1,500, the elemental explosion is very strong. That's just a slash. Lu Chen really didn't want to talk about his elemental affinity, so he just said perfunctorily, more or less. More or less. Brat, I'm warning you. If you don't answer my question properly, I'll definitely take you to the Fantasy Immortal Pavilion. The old man narrowed his eyes, and his tone became stern. Lu Chen shook his head. If I tell you, will you let me cultivate here? Immortal Master Li's attitude improved. The genius competition is to select geniuses. Even if you didn't participate, if you can get this old man's approval, you can naturally cultivate here. Can I go down? Go down. You're courting death. The middle-aged man said angrily. If you don't have 2000 elemental affinity, you'll be committing suicide unless you have an incredible cultivation method and a huge amount of spiritual energy. Another person said, Senior Brother Kuei, how can there be a cultivation method that can absorb a star core? If you don't have enough elemental affinity, you'll die no matter how advanced the cultivation method is. I'm just talking about theory. I'm not saying that there really is such a cultivation method. Lu Chen listened to the conversation between the two with a helpless expression. Speaking of which, he seemed to know all three of the methods to directly absorb a star core. He could even directly absorb a star core from the underworld. Don't try to eat until you're fat. Hurry up and answer Marshal Uncle Lee's question. What's your elemental affinity? Senior Brother Kuei said impatiently. Lu Chen shook his head. He didn't want to waste time on the Pine Plains continent. He secretly looked back at the star core below. My elemental affinity is. Just as everyone was listening to him attentively, Lu Chen suddenly exploded. 9 void steps. You want to run? Those people were not to be trifled with. When they saw Lu Chen running away, they were about to give chase. Great Ravager sweep. On the other side, Lu Chen waved out a few sword chi, blocking their path. After they dodged, they found that the guy had already rushed towards the star core. Don't chase him. He can't go down. Those people could only stare at Lu Chen fiercely. Is that guy crazy? The surrounding disciples also looked at Lu Chen. He's going to burn himself. Maybe his level is too low and he doesn't have any hope for cultivation anymore. Just as everyone was discussing, they suddenly saw that the little black dot stopped when it was less than a meter away from the fireball. Then, Lu Chen sat down cross-legged and entered a state of cultivation. Seeing this scene, the surrounding people were all shocked. What? He's so close to the core crystal core, but he's not burned. How is this possible? How is it possible for someone to cultivate so close to the core of a star? His elemental affinity. What's his elemental affinity? At this moment, Lu Chen was hovering in front of the star core. Strengthen. Hurry up. Lu Chen closed his eyes. Lu Chen entered a state of cultivation. His body was rapidly being strengthened by the core crystal core. His elemental affinity for fire began to rise crazily. Li Wei, wait for me. Chapter 1047. Absorbing the star core's spiritual energy, physical attributes increased. Strength increased by 20 points. Agility increased by 20 points. Physique increased by 20 points. Spiritual energy increased by 8 points. Every minute, such data would pop up. At the same time, every hour, Lu Chen's fire element affinity increased by 2 points. Jiutian. You have reached the level of 9 stars field Grand Cultivator. Your spiritual energy reserves have met the requirements for a breakthrough. Please break through your cultivation level. Lu Chen temporarily exited his cultivation state. Lu Chen wondered if there would be any problems breaking through before the star core. During the breakthrough, he would not be able to absorb spiritual energy. Even if his fire element affinity had exceeded 3000, he would not be able to resist the fire element's attack at any time. He would also not be able to resist the heat of the star core. The surrounding geological structure was very complicated. The people above did not dare to come down. They had to find a place to break through first. Thinking of this, Lu Chen moved away from the star core and disappeared. In an area filled with lava, Lu Chen found a rock and sat down. He then exited the state of symbiosis of gods and demons. Breakthrough. Suddenly, Lu Chen felt a large amount of warm current flowing through his body, nourishing all the cells in his body. His bones seemed to be stretched. His muscles twitched involuntarily. His whole body felt indescribably comfortable. More than 2 hours later, Lu Chen stood up and suddenly found that he seemed to be taller than before. Huh. I feel like I'm 1.8 meters tall. Lu Chen said in surprise. The place where he usually stood now looked down. He touched his skin again. It was as smooth as milk. Damn, what tender skin. Damn, my face, oh my god, it's so tender and smooth. Not only that, Lu Chen felt that his body was full of energy. In particular, Lu Chen felt that he was especially energetic. Lu Chen, who was almost 30 years old, suddenly felt like he had returned to his youth. Lu Chen frowned slightly. After being in the Jiutian for so long, especially after being in the fatigue state for several months, Lu Chen realized that energy was also an attribute. After all, without energy, one would be dispirited. But after this breakthrough, his spirit was much stronger than before. Not bad, not bad. I didn't break through for nothing. I've finally advanced to earth cultivation. It's not easy for me to endure humiliation for so many years. Lu Chen stood by the lava for a while. Thinking that he was pressed for time, Lu Chen had to put away his cheerful mood. The Pine Plain Star Core is much weaker than the Underworld Crystal Core. It seems like it can only be strengthened for a few more days. I should hurry up and cultivate to the next place. Lu Chen quickly turned back. A few hours later, Lu Chen returned to the Star Core. But when he looked up, he saw that the winners of the genius competition had already left the upper cultivation area. However, there were quite a few new faces, and they all looked quite old. They finally waited for Lu Chen to come back. That elderly from before shouted at Lu Chen, "Brat, are you done with your cultivation? Can you come up for a chat? Our pavilion master would like to meet you." Lu Chen shook his head. He wasn't going to go up this time. But then again, these people didn't interrupt him when he was cultivating. It was impossible that no one from the Celestial Pavilion could get close to the Star Core. From this point of view, Lu Chen had a good impression of them. "Senior, have you been to the Qingze mainland? Did the Celestial Fortress mention anything about the underworld to you?" Elderly frowned. "You've been cultivating in front of the Star Core these days. How did you know about this? Who are you?" Lu Chen said loudly, "I've already asked the elders before. As long as my affinity with the fire element is enough, I can stay and cultivate. Now I'm just following your request to cultivate here. I haven't overstepped my boundaries. The army of the dead's invasion is imminent. Forgive me for being pressed for time, so I can't go to your celestial pavilion. If I've offended you, I'll pay you a visit in the future." With that, Lu Chen entered the state of cultivation again. Elderly frowned. This brat's identity was a mystery. He didn't leave the fire's sacred land, but he knew about the underworld. Obviously, he knew about it. "Elder, should we ask the pavilion police to arrest him?" one of his subordinates asked. Elderly narrowed his eyes and was silent for a long time. Finally, he shook his head. "We did agree to let him cultivate here. As for him being able to cultivate near the Star Core, it's his ability. It's unreasonable for us to arrest him because of this. Besides, he also mentioned the army of the dead's invasion. It seems that he has the intention to stop the army of the dead. Now, the entire sixth heaven is in need of people. No matter which celestial pavilion he's from, improving his strength will be helpful." In the end, Elderly and the others didn't send people to arrest Lu Chen. However, they didn't leave either. They were always watching Lu Chen. 5 days later, Lu Chen found that his cultivation speed had dropped sharply. It seemed that he couldn't improve his strength quickly here. In these 15 days, Lu Chen's physical 3 dimensions increased by 430,000 each. His spiritual energy increased by 170,000. His cultivation level directly increased to 2-star Wild Earth cultivation. His fire elemental affinity increased by 720 points. His total fire elemental affinity reached 3,600. The third level of Raging Flames Burning Sky requires 5,000 points of fire elemental affinity. If I can find some more star cores and cultivate Burning Sky, that would be great. Lu Chen frowned slightly. After being strengthened by the Pine Plain Star Core, his fatigue status improved again. Fatigue status effect weakened. Fatigue status, physical energy and spiritual energy consumption increased by 7 times. Skills and elixirs cannot be used to recover. When using the Pure Flame Spiritual Pill, fatigue status will disappear. Duration, 60 seconds. Can be used once every 3 days. The consumption decreased, and the fatigue-free status of the Pure Flame Spiritual Pill doubled. I can hold on for 1 minute. Hee hee. Lu Chen smiled proudly. After spending half a month here, Lu Chen didn't dare to stay any longer. He glanced at Elder Li and the others. At this time, there were still people monitoring him. Lu Chen rolled his eyes and left in the opposite direction of the light pillar. After getting out of their sight, Lu Chen took a detour to the light pillar. Lu Chen slightly concealed his whereabouts. He might not be able to completely fool those people, but Lu Chen didn't care. He had to race against time and didn't have time to care about other things. Pine Plains Planet. I'll come and see if I have the chance next time. With the white light, Lu Chen disappeared. Not long after, 3 figures appeared in front of the white light pillar. The 3 of them looked at each other and frowned. That kid disappeared from here. This is a teleportation array. Why does it look like a spirit gathering array? It's constantly absorbing the star core's spiritual energy. It shouldn't be used for teleportation, nor does it look like it's for spirit gathering. Strange, let's go back and report to the pavilion master. Yao He had almost recovered, but she didn't leave the 7 elements for one. She was anxiously waiting for Lu Chen. It's been 15 days. That guy shouldn't have run away. At this moment, Lu Chen's figure rushed out of the light pillar. Seeing Nameless, Yao He finally breathed a sigh of relief. You're back. Suddenly, Yao He saw Lu Chen's badge. You're a 2-star Earth cultivation. Where did you get so many cash extraction scrolls? I leveled up naturally. Lu Chen said, cultivation levels aren't that important to me. I won't deliberately level up. Besides, I don't have anywhere to get cash extraction scrolls. Leveled up naturally. From a 7-star Great Cultivator to a 2-star Earth cultivation level in 15 days. You must be kidding. Leveling up naturally is something that can only be found by chance. How did you level up so many times? Lu Chen smiled and didn't explain further. Come, I don't have time to explain. I'm going to the next continent. Oh, right. Lu Chen was about to leave when he suddenly remembered something and stopped. There might be people chasing after you. You'd better leave this place first. With that, Lu Chen quickly entered the second light pillar. Chapter 1048. Lu Chen's figure blurred in the beam of light and disappeared. Yao He had to analyze the sequence of events from the few words Lu Chen gave her. Previously, she deduced that the 7 elements of the 7 elements in one was most likely to draw spiritual energy from the large spirit veins of other planets. The more obvious the ice attribute of the mirror array was, the more likely it was to draw fire attribute spiritual energy. Considering that Lu Chen had once used the terrifying fire attribute spell, Burning Star, Yao He frowned. A spirit vein that can continuously provide a large amount of fire attribute. Is it really drawing energy from the core of the planet? Nameless is cultivating near the core of the planet. Is that why the improvement is so fast? Also, he said that someone would chase after us. It seems that the place has been developed. But such a large array must be guarding a treasure. How could the array's creator expose the main body's light beam, unless this array was already in place before people started to develop the star core spirit vein? Thinking of the level of the mirror array and the difficulty of setting up the array, this possibility was very big. Ancient Great Array, then what is this Great Array protecting? Yao He's brows furrowed. After coming out of the second beam of light, Lu Chen could already feel that the surrounding temperature was extremely high. It was just that the surrounding rock layer was very narrow. If it weren't for this beam of light, perhaps this place would be buried deep underground just like the surrounding area. He frowned slightly. The situation of this continent was obviously different from the Songyuan continent. Had the core of the planet not been developed? Separated by the surrounding soil layer, Lu Chen could hear some strange sounds. Lava flow. Lu Chen frowned slightly. After thinking for a moment, he activated the symbiosis of gods and demons and punched through the rock layer. Sure enough, the rock layer was not thick and Lu Chen directly punched through it. Outside, a large amount of underground lava continued to gather. The rolling lava bubbled and emitted a poisonous smell. Boss, there are a few fire rock flowers over there. I can refine the immortal fire pill that permanently increases the affinity of the fire element. I can't survive here. You go and pick them. Little Green's voice sounded in Lu Chen's mind. Lu Chen saw that there was a small white flower growing in the lava flow. There are actually living creatures in a place like this. Lu Chen was quite shocked. It's a good thing that this place hasn't been developed before. Otherwise, this kind of thing would definitely have been taken away. Arriving in front of the fire rock flower, Lu Chen had just bent down when he discovered that there was another flower nearby. Looking over again, at a distance, there was a white flower swaying near the magma. Even when the magma brushed past it, it was not damaged at all, as if it had just touched ordinary water. I'm rich. Lu Chen immediately transformed into a little boy picking mushrooms, picking them all the way. Little Green, can this flower be cultivated by an alchemist apprentice? Lu Chen asked. Boss, fire rock flowers are extremely rare because they can only grow in places with extremely high temperatures and absorb poisonous gases. For example, they can only survive near the Earth's core. It is also difficult for the alchemy apprentices to cultivate them. Lu Chen thought about it. The medicine boy was indeed unable to simulate the environment of the Earth's core. Boss, there are more over there. Fire rock flowers are too precious. Eating them directly can also increase one's fire element affinity. Hence, if other creatures see them, they will not be spared. It's rare to come across them, so pick more. Little Green appeared very excited. Naturally, Lu Chen would not disappoint Little Green. Under the rocks and beside the magma river, he began a carpet search. Wow, boss, you're too awesome. You've already picked over 40 flowers. Ha ha ha, I can refine at least 10 immortal fire pills. Lu Chen could not help but ask curiously, how much does one immortal fire pill add? This depends on the individual's physique and the quality of the pill. For a first-grade immortal fire pill, it usually adds between 5 to 25 points. For every grade, it can add about 2 points. Is there such a big difference between different people consuming it? Yes, the highest difference is 5 times. Boss's fire element affinity is already very high. I'm actually very curious to see how much it will increase. Lu Chen nodded. If just picking some herbs could increase his fire element affinity by a few dozen points, it would be much better than cultivating for an hour. Little Green, do you need any other materials? I still need some supplementary herbs, but I have them all here. Boss, I'm going to refine pills. Remember to pick any fire rock flowers you see. After Little Green finished speaking, he did not say anything else. Lu Chen remembered Little Green's instructions and searched around for a while. Previously, there were more flowers in the area, but later on, there were only a few scattered flowers. Lu Chen collected all of them. Unknowingly, he had also approached the star core. Lu Chen still did not know what this continent was called. He only saw the huge fireball suspended above the magma lake. It was about the size of the Songyuan continent's star core. It emitted a fiery glow, and its interior was bright red. From time to time, large amounts of magma would pour down. Lu Chen activated his status and directly approached the star core to cultivate. Absorbing the star core's spiritual energy, physical attributes increased. Strength increased by 18 points. Agility increased by 18 points. Physique increased by 18 points. Spiritual power increased by 9 points. The three-dimensional strengthening effect of this star core was not as good as the Songyuan star core, but the increase in spiritual power was higher. In terms of fire affinity, the increase was also slightly higher than the Songyuan star core. It increased fire affinity by 5 points in 2 hours. There was no one to disturb him here. Lu Chen was completely immersed in his cultivation. Day after day, Lu Chen resisted the star core's spiritual energy while receiving the star core's strengthening. 5 days, 10 days, 15 days, 17 days. After Lu Chen realized that the strengthening effect had weakened, he stopped cultivating. In these 17 days, Lu Chen's three-dimensional physical attributes increased by 440,000, his spiritual power increased by 220,000, and his cultivation level reached 5-star earth cultivation. His fire affinity increased by 1,000 points, and his total fire affinity reached 4,600 points. Easy fatigue, physical strength and spiritual power consumption increased by 6 times. Skills and pills cannot be used to recover. When using pure flame rock pills, easy fatigue status will disappear. Duration, 120 seconds. Can be used once every 3 days, 120 seconds. It doubled. Lu Chen was very excited. His duration had increased again. Oh, right. Little Green, is the immortal fire pill ready? Boss, I finished refining it a few days ago, but I saw that you were cultivating, so I did not disturb you. Little Green said. In Lu Chen's backpack, there were 13 dark red pills. Lu Chen withdrew from the star core and took out 1 pill. What grade is this? This is a grade 7 pill. In theory, it can increase. Before taking the pill, Lu Chen deliberately looked at his fire affinity again. 4,628 points. After taking the immortal fire pill, a wave of heat spread from his throat to his stomach. Lu Chen nervously looked at his attribute panel. How much did it increase? The warm current spread throughout his body. Not long after, Lu Chen's fire affinity changed. 4,628, for 659 it increased by 31 points. Boss, how much did it increase? 31 points. Lu Chen nodded in satisfaction. 1 pill was equivalent to 12 hours of cultivation in front of the star core. It was worth it. Not bad, boss. The lowest grade of this batch of pills is grade 7. You can almost ignore the drug resistance. You can continue to take them. Lu Chen nodded and stuffed the rest of the pills into his mouth. If someone saw how Lu Chen ate the immortal fire pill, their jaws would probably drop. Such rare immortal fire pills, and all of them were of extremely high grade. He ate more than 10 of them in one bite as if he was eating jelly beans. It tastes a little earthy. Lu Chen mumbled as he chewed. Chapter 1049. After eating 12 immortal fire pills, Lu Chen's fire element affinity increased by 412 points, reaching 5,063 points. Seeing this number, Lu Chen's first reaction was that he could learn Burning Heaven. Learn Burning Heaven. Lu Chen hurriedly said. 3rd layer of Raging Flames Burning Heaven, Earth Fire Burning Heaven, learned. Generally speaking, after learning a skill, one always has to try out its power. Since there's no one here, I can try this skill. Lu Chen was about to use Burning Heaven when he suddenly realized that he couldn't use it if he only activated Divine Demon Symbiosis. Insufficient spiritual energy. Damn, what's with this skill, how much spiritual energy does it need? Lu Chen was astonished. His own spiritual energy was more than 500,000, but he couldn't even use Burning Heaven once. Carefully looking at the skill description, the minimum spiritual energy required to use Burning Heaven was 10 million. As for the higher part, it was converted into the duration, fire damage and so on. In other words, no matter how high the spiritual energy was, Burning Heaven could help you use it, but the minimum required was 10 million. Lu Chen carefully looked again and confirmed that the skill description said 10 million spiritual energy, and not 10 million spirit energy. Only then did he completely give up. Damn, how many people have 10 million spiritual energy? This skill is not intended for people to use at all. Lu Chen was speechless. Unless he activated soul body as one, he couldn't use Burning Heaven even if he had dual heaven's might. This skill's requirements were too exaggerated. No wonder Kong Lian Xian said that he could only cultivate to the first layer at most. At his level, it would be good if he could cultivate to the first layer. I don't know where the next light beam will send me, so I won't use soul body as one. Thinking of this, Lu Chen dispelled the idea of trying out the skill and quickly returned to Qingze continent. Yao He didn't leave and was still waiting for him. When she saw Lu Chen come out, she noticed that Lu Chen was now a 5-star wild earth cultivator. Even though Yao He's level was still much higher than Lu Chen, who didn't start as a cultivator and advance step by step. At the earth cultivator stage, the speed of advancement had obviously slowed down. It wasn't strange for some people to advance 1 star in a few years, and some people even stopped at earth cultivator. In the end, this guy leveled up like he was drinking water. The worst thing was that he still leveled up naturally. Yao He finally understood. The reason why Nameless' level was not high was because he was not in the mood to level up. Your level, it's too slow, isn't it? Lu Chen shook his head and agreed. It's indeed too slow. The underworld still rises faster. Yao He forcefully swallowed back the words she was about to say. Who said you were slow in leveling up? What kind of logic is this? It was not that Lu Chen was faking it. Ever since he had entered the Jiutian, as long as he was serious about leveling up, regardless of whether it was the level of his war soul or his immortal cultivation, it would be like sitting on a rocket. With his current speed, he didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. Luo Yao also knew that this fellow could not be inferred with common sense. Therefore, she said, Nameless. Is the other side of the 7 elements returned to one the stellar core spirit veins? Lu Chen nodded. Yes, I've been to 2 planets. The core region of one has already been developed and the other has not. The first continent is called the Songyuan continent. The eye of the array is not far from the cultivation grounds they have developed. So, you'd better leave this place. You might meet people from other continents. Yao He frowned. If they discovered the large array here, once the 7 elements returned to one was broken, it would be troublesome if there were any treasures. Nameless, I won't leave. No matter where you go to cultivate, it's best that you hurry. If someone comes after you, I'll think of a way to deal with them. The people I met before were from the general hospital. It's not safe for you to be here alone. Lu Chen said seriously. Don't worry, I won't have a direct confrontation with them. As long as I lure them out, the 7 elements returned to one will naturally deal with them. Anyway, I have a way to deal with them. You just focus on cultivating. I'll help you get rid of any worries. Lu Chen looked at Yao He. Seeing that she was determined, and thinking that this woman was half heavenly fox, he nodded at her and said, Thank you. I'm not helping you. Even if they didn't kill Li Wei now, but, she's still enduring pain that you can't imagine. Lu Chen nodded and looked at the 3rd light pillar. There are 5 more, we have to hurry. A month ago, Celestial Fortress gathered all the general hospitals and announced the news of the underworld invasion. This time, the heavenly immortal castle came prepared. Although the death squads they sent out suffered heavy casualties, they still brought back precious information from the Shadow Stone. In front of the Shadow Stone, there were no more doubts. All the general hospitals realized the seriousness of this matter. After a discussion, everyone agreed that it was not advisable to enter the underworld to fight. From the Shadow Stone, it was clear that the immortal cultivators in the underworld were at a great disadvantage. Nameless was the only exception to this point. In addition, the army of the dead had now appeared in groups of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. They had obviously entered a state of combat readiness. In the Shadow Stone, dozens of Suicide Squad members took poison and committed suicide before they were captured. This way of dying was much better than being captured by the army of the dead and having their yang energy sucked dry and their soul destroyed. However, according to logic, after they died, they would enter the underworld again. This point attracted the attention of the others. If they were killed by the army of the dead, once their souls entered the underworld, after a few days, their memories of their previous lives would be washed away, and they would change sides. Under such circumstances, everyone was forced to adopt a defensive strategy. After formulating the relevant strategy, all the general hospitals quickly returned to their own continents. Yi Fan and the others followed the people of Zhongxiangu back to Xinyuan continent. Zhongxiangu quickly gathered all the deans of the various academies to discuss this matter. Then, a large-scale investigation began. All the holy hospitals sent a large number of students to the demonic academy to dig secret passages and set up defensive formations. A month later, in the underground warehouse of the Donglin Holy Hospital, another hidden passage was found. However, no one could guarantee that the demonic academy was the only exit in Xinyuan continent. Even though all the academies were investigating, there were still many areas that they could not penetrate. No matter how intense the competition was in the past, the entire Xinyuan continent had to put aside the conflicts between the academies and work together to resist the invasion of the army of the dead. Because the demonic academy's level was low, and there was an entrance to the underworld in the academy, no students were recruited. Everyone was in the academy. During this period, all the meditation pavilions were filled with people almost every day. With the invasion of the army of the dead imminent, the geniuses of the Divine Demon Academy worked harder than ever before, making final preparations for this great battle. After dinner, Yi Fan, Xiao Zhan, Chu Tian, Wu Xian, Skyfall, and more than 40 other Divine Demon Academy disciples sat together at the back of the mountain. These people were the elite disciples of the Demonic Academy, and all of them knew how to use swords. Senior brother Chu Tian, I'm afraid that the invasion of the army of the dead this time will be a fierce battle, said a newcomer. Chu Tian nodded. It will indeed be a fierce battle. Moreover, the Demonic Academy will become an important battlefield. The Academy is transferring resources to the Fenglai Sacred Academy, and they have also set up a large number of defensive formations in front of the Cliff of Reflection. Xiao Zhan said in a rare serious tone, there's nothing much to say about a battle of life and death. However, I hope that everyone can do their best to protect the other students. We are all from the Demonic Academy, so no matter how much we compete in the past, we must work together at this time. Yi Fan said indifferently, the Academy head is not here, so we must help him protect his home. Is everyone okay with that? Senior brother Yi Fan, our Demonic Academy is not to be bullied. As long as they dare to come, we will give them a big gift, said a beautiful female disciple. Wu Xian clenched his fists. We must settle the debt from last time. That's right, heroes are born in troubled times. This is also a great opportunity for our Demonic Academy to rise up. This time, we must fight a beautiful defensive battle. Chu Tian nodded. Alright, since it's like this, then during this period of time, everyone will practice the combination technique I gave you. Within 2 months, you must become familiar with the Heavenly Rhythm Divine Sword Array, and be able to cooperate well. Chapter 1050. On a huge planet, this continent was hundreds of times larger than an ordinary continent. This continent was called the Divine Spill Continent. There were many powerful holy academies here, and as many as 10 immortal academies had set up branches here. In the north of the Divine Spill Continent, there was an ancient rainforest called the Demon Fall Forest. There were countless masters in the Divine Spill Continent, and the Demon Fall Forest was an important place for all sects to gain experience. Especially in the periphery of the Demon Fall Forest, disciples of various academies could be seen everywhere. However, the deeper one went into the Demon Fall Forest, the more dangerous it was. In the vicinity of the Demon Fall mountain range, very few people would set foot there unless they were at the Human King realm. At this time, in a cave in the depths of the Demon Fall Forest, there was a faint light of fire. A teenager of 14 or 15 years old was roasting a large piece of raw meat. If one looked carefully, they would find that there was no mist of spiritual power in front of the badge on his chest. It was clearly written that he was at the 2 stars of the Human King realm. Beside him, a little white mouse was gnawing at the raw meat with all its might. Another half-naked man was sitting there adding firewood to the bonfire. If someone who knows Lu Chen is here, they will be surprised to see the half-naked man. This person was actually Lu Chen. Except for the fact that he was not busy cooking like before, his demeanor and behavior were completely the same. Suddenly, the teenager looked up at Lu Chen, shook his head, and sighed, "Little Origin, you should change back. No matter how well you imitate, you are still not your father." The little white mouse also looked up and put down its little paw. It felt that even the delicious food in front of it had become tasteless. It turned out that these 3 guys were Little Origin, Little Beast, and Little Hairball. Back then, Xiao Yuan had absorbed the spiritual energy from the self-detonation of the 4 supreme spiritual cores, so its strength was unimaginable. The puppet master was forced to kick Lu Chen into the 6th layer of heaven, but Xiao Yuan was eager to save its master, so the puppet master escaped. Everyone was a puppet master, but Lu Chen's master was about to die, and he was almost killed by his puppet. No one knew what the puppet master was thinking. However, Little Origin was 1 step too late. It was transmitted to a different place with Lu Chen, and they were separated from each other. Fortunately, the 3 of them did not separate and landed in the Demon Fall Forest together. The 3 of them were extremely lucky. They just happened to run into a battle between a Human King realm expert and a high-level demonic beast. Both sides were severely exhausted. At that time, both Little Hairy Ball and Little Beast God were severely injured, and Little Yuan knew that no matter who won, it would not benefit them. Relying on his heaven-defying strength back then, he went all the way and killed that Human King and the rank 5 magical beast together. The little critter's badge belonged to that Human King. Logically speaking, when an immortal cultivator wore another person's badge, it would also show their own level. However, he just happened to not be an immortal cultivator, so there was no reaction when he wore it. It still showed that he was a 2-star Human King. That Human King and demonic beast were also quite pitiful. After falling into the hands of these 3 fellows, not even their bones remained. After receiving the spirit energy from the 2 masters, the little beast and the little furball's strength soared. Although the little originator's strength had decreased over time, the little beast and the little furball had risen. At this point, the 3 of them began to hunt. Whenever they hunted prey, the little furball would eat the meat, and the little beast would eat the beast core. In the past few months, the 3 of them were so satisfied that they swept through a small part of the Forbidden Forest and killed all the birds in the surrounding dozens of miles. Maybe it was because the hunting had become more difficult recently and they had more free time, and they missed Lu Chen too much. The little beast asked Little Yuan to look like Lu Chen, but the result was the opposite. Seeing the meat reminded them of Lu Chen, which made the little beast and the little furball even sadder. "Hey, Dad, where are you? Little beastie misses you." Looking at the meat in front of him, the little furball did not smell good. Squeak, 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 big brother, rhubarb, Sister Green, Xiao Min, shaking its head, little Yuan returned to the form of a white tiger. It had just reunited with its master, and now they were separated. During the hunting, they encountered some small teams, but when they saw the little beast's badge, they immediately became obedient and only thought that the little beast was a beast controller. From their mouths, the little beast and the little beast gained a deeper understanding of the sixth heaven. The sixth heaven was very big. It was not just a continent, but was composed of many planets and continents. For the little beast and the little beast, finding Lu Chen was more difficult than finding a needle in a haystack. The three of them could only continue to hunt in the Demon Fall Forest. During this period, their strength had improved a lot. However, what was the use of improving their strength? They did not know how to find Lu Chen at all. While the three of them were crying, the little beast suddenly raised its head and raised its hand. The little furball and the little source immediately understood that someone was approaching. Not long after, a few trembling people approached the cave. "Excuse me, is that beast controller here?" The little beast walked out with a frown and found that there were more than 20 people standing at the entrance. The one who spoke was an old man in his 40s or 50s, who also seemed to be very cautious. "Who are you looking for?" the little beast asked grumpily. Seeing the little beast, the old man breathed a sigh of relief. "You are still here. What is it?" the little beast asked. "Well, it's like this. We are from the Nether Spring Academy. Our academy's strength in the Divine Spill continent is, cough cough, not bad. The army of the dead is about to invade. We heard that a genius beast controller had appeared in the Demon Fall Forest, so we came to pay a visit." The little beast and the others had met many people during this time, so they had some understanding of the situation in the Divine Spill continent, especially the top immortal academies and sacred academies. They had never heard of the Nether Spring Academy. "Why are you visiting us? Hurry up and leave, or we will kill you." The old man's face turned ashen. This fellow was just as the rumor said, his temperament was strange. "Well, little friend, there is no need to be angry. The army of the dead is about to invade. At this time, there is no need for us to kill each other." The old man awkwardly smiled. "The army of the dead is invading?" The little beast frowned as it heard this for the first time. "What, little friend doesn't know about this? This matter has already spread throughout the sixth heavens. It's related to the life and death of almost everyone." The little beast's frown deepened. "What is going on? This wasn't a secret to begin with." The old man told the little beast everything that had happened. "The situation is like this. The underworld is restless and is trying to annex the Yang world. They are extremely strong. Think about it, the millions of years-old souls are attacking. This is a terrifying matter. Now, all the academies are doing their best to deal with them." The little beast blinked. "You mean, everyone will be involved in this matter?" "More or less. Of course, if we can block the army of the dead at the exit and prevent the war from spreading, that would be the best. But I'm afraid that we won't be able to block the flood." The old man sighed as he spoke. "Our academy has more than 3,000 people, and 2,000 elites have been transferred. The remaining 1,000 are all newcomers. I don't know how many of us will survive." As the old man spoke, he told the truth. It seemed that the Nether Spring Academy wasn't some powerful academy. On the contrary, its strength could be considered weak in the Divine Spill continent. The little beast narrowed its eyes. If the people of the sixth heaven were involved, then they would definitely be able to find their dad. After all, their dad would never miss such an opportunity. "Do you want us to join your academy?" The old man froze for a moment. This kid was quite direct. We do have such an intention." "Okay, but I will only join temporarily. When I want to leave, you can't stop me." The little beast said and shook its head at little Yuan and little Furball. "Hey, get ready to work." Chapter 1051. Even Secluded Spring didn't know what kind of monsters he had brought out. In short, they had attracted the legendary beast tamer from Demon Fall Forest. After returning to the Secluded Spring Academy, the little critter immediately became the center of attention. Damn, he is the beast tamer who has been living in Demon Fall Forest since he arrived at the 6th celestial layer. 2-star human king. How old is he? This fellow didn't go to the Immortal Academy. He was actually picked up by our academy. Heavens, this is unbelievable. 2-star human king, this level can be ranked even in the God Spill continent. After all, the little critter used to follow Lu Chen. Being stared at by 1 or 2,000 people, he didn't feel anything. He swaggered to his residence with little Yuan and little Furball in his arms. This small courtyard had its own entrance and was far away from the other students' dormitories. It was specially arranged for the little critter by the academy. Beast God, these are 2 sets of clothes and 1 set of academy clothes that I bought for you. You have been living in Demon Fall Forest for too long and your clothes are tattered. Even if you don't care about these things with your strength, having a new set of clothes will always be more presentable. Take a look and see if you are satisfied with them. The little critter looked at the 2 sets of clothes that the vice principal gave him. One was white with a golden dragon pattern, one was purple with a black tiger pattern, and one was blue with the academy's clothes. It was true that he didn't have any clothes that fit him. I have kept the academy's clothes and the white with a golden dragon pattern. Consider it as my purchase. When I have the money, I will give it to you. I don't like the purple one. No need, no need. These are all gifts from us. If you don't like the purple one, I will change it for you. No need, I said I don't want it. The vice principal couldn't understand this fellow's temper. Seeing the little critter angry, he quickly put away the purple clothes and said, okay, you have the final say. At this time, the beast god was willing to join Secluded Spring. This was too important for Secluded Spring. How could he dare to go against his temper? The little critter's temper wasn't bad. It was just that he didn't interact much with others. If it was Lu Chen or even Luo Yao, he would probably act like a child again. After they left, the little critter put down his arrogance and happily tried on the 2 sets of clothes. Hee, you don't have any new clothes to wear, do you? Little Beast looked at little Furball and little Yuan smugly. The originator transformed into several different appearances: Lu Chen's Bloodlust Sword God, Lu Chen's Descent of the Devil Sovereign, the Lord of Night. The little beast immediately stopped smiling. Little Yuan, you don't count. You're not even human. Squeak squeak squeak. The little Furball immediately squeaked towards the little beast. You're not human either. Little Beastie immediately put down its clothes, and the 3 of them began to wrestle with each other. Even Lu Chen wouldn't be surprised by this scene. The little beast god had been fighting with little Furball since he was a baby until he was a teenager. Now, with the addition of little originator, it became even more lively. The vice president of the Nether Spring Sacred Academy was about to leave when he heard the loud noises in the room. He turned around and peeped through the window. Principal Ghostfinger, what's going on inside? The teacher behind him asked worriedly. It's fine. I think he's trying to get used to his battle pets. Ghostfinger retracted his neck and sighed. The war is imminent. We still have many things to do. Let's go. The 6th heaven had been particularly quiet over the past few months. All the competitions and activities had been suspended. Even the usual business dealings had ceased. All the continents had established their own defense forces and practiced. The major academies were doing the same. All the external disciples were summoned back, and the students seized the last moment to improve their strength and familiarize themselves with battle formations. The leaders of the academies established temporary alliances and organized the construction of fortifications. On the other hand, the main academies had been investigating the netherworld, but the people they sent out often never returned. The information they brought back was more and more disturbing. Inside the demonic academy, a sea of clouds was having a meeting with Tian, the new and old mentors, and the student representatives in the conference hall. 2 months ago, the Zhongxiangu sent a message saying that anomalies occurred in the netherworld and that the Eternal Soul Temple had been opened. "It's almost time for them to invade the world of Yang," said a sea of clouds worriedly. "I really don't know if our strategy of focusing on defense was right or wrong," Tian also sighed. "In the netherworld, other than Nameless, everyone's strength has been severely damaged. Fighting in the netherworld is indeed disadvantageous for us, but to just wait for them to attack. Sigh, forget it. There's no point in talking about this now. This is an unpredictable strategy, no one can tell if it's right or wrong. Yi Fan, how's your practice of the heavenly rhythmic godly sword formation going?" A sea of clouds already knew about the heavenly rhythmic godly sword formation, so he naturally wouldn't object. "Uncle A Sea of Clouds, the sword formation has been completed. In my opinion, it's quite powerful," Yi Fan said. A sea of clouds nodded. This was good news. Long Xiang said, "Oh right, Donglin, Feng Lai, Xiaoyao, Shangji, and the other academies have already set up a defense line around our academy. With the defensive formation personally set up by the Zhongxiangu Immortal Venerable, we might be able to hold on. I'm just afraid that there might be other entrances that we haven't discovered." Everyone fell silent. If the army of the dead charged into Xinyuan continent without any pressure, it would be a fatal blow to the Sacred Academy continent. However, the entrances to the netherworld were too hidden. No one could guarantee that they could find all the entrances. "We can't do anything about this. Now, we have to ensure that we can take control of the situation," a sea of clouds said. Tian said seriously, "Everyone, don't be too attached to the academy. We've already transferred the academy's ordinary resources to Feng Lai Academy. The key is to protect the living forces as much as possible. There's a saying now that those who die in battle will enter the underworld shrine of eternity. After their memories are erased, they'll become their fighting force. Therefore, protecting the disciples is especially important." Lan Ji said, "We'll form a special formation for the pharmacists. In addition, we'll try our best to use puppet war pets to fight. Once there's an injured person on the battlefield, someone will immediately treat them." Saiji also reported, "The 1642 people of the academy have all been formed. Currently, all the resources of the academy, except for those brought back by the dean, have been distributed." A sea of clouds nodded. It seemed that they had done all the preparations they could. The academy had made all the preparations, but they were still short of one person. A sea of clouds frowned. "Why is there no news from that guy at all? It's been almost 4 months. He hasn't replied to any of our telepathic messages." Tian said, "The most worrying thing is that guy is bent on saving Li Wei. But how can it be easy to save someone from an army of 10,000? The strength of the 4 ghost kings in the army of the dead is unfathomable. Especially when Li Wei is still in the hands of the king of hell, the archdevil. No matter what, now we just hope that he can hurry back and meet us first." While everyone was discussing, a disciple suddenly rushed into the conference hall from outside the door. "Uncle Master A Sea of Clouds, Uncle Master Tian, this is bad." Everyone hurriedly stood up and stared at this person. "What's wrong?" "The army of the dead is on the move. Tens of thousands of army of the dead, they directly rushed out of the immortal corpse mound." A sea of clouds' eyes widened. The more he feared, the more it happened. Xingzi continent indeed had more than 2 entrances to the underworld. The battle between the underworld and the Yang world had finally begun. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.